Good evening, Sifters. It's GameFace, episode 49 on Sifted Games, here on a Thursday, which initially was going to be a special episode, but we have some news. GameFace will be switching to Thursday permanently, starting today.
Yep.
So Matt has acquired himself a new gig.
Yeah, which we can't totally talk about yet, but we'll get to it. But basically, it means traveling from one side of LA to the other.
During rush hour.
During rush hour. So we're gonna have to pick a day that's like the easier day, like not a crazy day at the new gig, and we're gonna maybe move a little bit later in the night so I can make it here on time.
Yeah, it looks like the show will be starting about an hour later, around 7 p.m. Pacific, going forward every Thursday at 7. It actually kind of works out. We've moved Pactor from the weekend to Monday, and so if GameFace is on Thursday, you actually kind of have an even gap between shows. So give us a little more time to play games. It's not quite as immediate as that Tuesday when everything's coming out.
It's just, real life getting in the way of the rest of real life.
Yeah,
and
unfortunately.
I apologize if it sets anybody's schedule whack because of it, but there's not really any way around it.
Yeah, that's life. I think the 7 p.m. start might be the tougher part for a lot of the European folks.
Yeah, now you're getting up at 4 in the morning or something. I mean, some ungodly hours one way or the other. But.
Yeah, we won't hate you guys if we lose you off the stream. We would totally understand, and that's what the archive is for.
Hell, if you're watching us now, you're watching us at that time anyway. At some point. So.
Yeah. So a couple things we want to talk about off the top. If you watched Pactor Factor this week, he dropped a little nugget in the show about a new program that we're doing. They're basically called new subscriber raffles. So beginning tomorrow, there will be an article, so to speak, posted on Sifted. And every month what we're going to do is we're going to have a big bundle of swag, essentially, that will be raffled off to a new subscriber from that month. Now you have to be a premium subscriber, and you have to be a premium subscriber in the United States. If you have a mailing address in the U.S., that's totally okay. Just don't tell us. As long as we ship it to that U.S. address, we just cannot ship internationally due to pricing laws in the United States. So if you have a bro in the U.S. or whatever that you can have us ship it to, we're totally fine with that. Again, don't tell us. But just give us the address and we'll ship it to you. But so anyone who's watching GameFace right now who maybe is on a free trial, or someone who's a basic subscriber and is thinking about stepping up to premium, basically everybody who subscribes as a premium subscriber for any given month will automatically be entered into the new subscriber raffle for that month. Now, there is a wrinkle as well, just to this month in particular. And this came out of the blue while we were filming Pactor Factor. Just out of nowhere, Pactor drops that same person will also win 2 tickets to his E3 party at E3 2016. That is a huge deal.
That is, there's plenty of people in the industry who have never gotten to go to that party.
I was sitting there while we were recording the show, and he said that, didn't talk about it before we recorded or anything. He just dropped it in the show, and my jaw, hit the floor. It is a huge deal. If you ever want to meet pretty much everyone,
yeah.
all your heroes of gaming, you'll meet them at Michael Pactor's party. So, if it does work out that whoever wins the raffle cannot come to the party, we would certainly appreciate if you pass those tickets on, and we'll find somebody else who can come to give them to. But yeah, and we're going to do this program every month. I just want to give further motivation for people who are trial subscribers to subscribe to the site. But that's running all the way through the month of May, and then we'll have another bundle of swag for June, July, August, and on and on. So just a new program to encourage people to become premium subscribers to Sifted. Hopefully it'll pay off for us and it'll do well. What else we got to talk about? Let's see. A couple small news things that we want to mention before we get on with the Big Six. EA basically said no to the NX this week.
Well,
I guess their exact words were, if it makes sense.
If it makes sense, which is
in what
corporate
world,
speak for no.
Right. In what world will it ever make sense?
I don't know. It's just that's some Dreamcast flashbacks right there.
Yeah. After their unprecedented support of the Wii U that lasted all of about a month. Mm-hmm. Well, let's see. They had their
launch.
They had their launch ports, no original games, and then Need for Speed came out a little later, and then, to the best of my knowledge, that was it.
I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unprecedented.
Wow.
As in, like,
it was unprecedented in how like weak it was.
Anemic it was, yeah. I mean, the third parties aren't piling onto the NX at all.
No.
If it's coming out in March, you're looking at pretty much no third-party support at launch. I think
There's going to be some Ubisoft stuff, probably.
maybe Coet. They didn't mention. They just had their financial report today. They didn't mention NX at all.
Yeah.
In fact, they did
If
mention.
anybody ends up on board, I think it'll be Ubisoft.
Probably. They've been a great partner
history.
to Nintendo.
I can see like some kind of Wii U edition of, or not Wii U, but like NX edition of like Watch Dogs 2. You know,
Maybe.
like after the fact.
It also got burnt really bad by Nintendo. So bad, in fact, that it had a finished Wii U game that it never released.
It didn't make financial sense to actually produce it.
To make any money back.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, Ubisoft and EA came out this week saying that they think the next generation of consoles will be the last, that gaming will be moving to streaming services after that, which basically backs up what Pachter said like a year ago and got vilified by everybody for. You can still like search Pachter on YouTube and find all these little hack people who went after Pachter for saying that, and he was right. Now everyone
think he's right. I don't want that at all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think at least in America, the internet, the infrastructure is not there for that. It's always going to have that weird lag to it.
Well, I think what they're
And I don't
saying
wanna play
is
that.
that'll be 10 years from now.
Yeah, well,
After this cycle's done, which will probably be 3 years from now, then you tack on another 5 to 7 after that. Then, I mean, at that point...
Yeah, but the speed of light's not going to get any faster, and it's always going to have that little bit of mush to it that like isn't the same as running it on local hardware, and I don't want that.
I'd agree with you.
If that happens, you're pushing me directly into being PC only.
Yeah. Well, that might be the case. That could make PC gaming absolutely explode. Which, again, based upon financial reports this week, not PC gaming, but PC sales are really starting to flatline because you don't have the casual folks who just used to buy a PC to like use Facebook or check email. Like everyone's doing that on their phones now.
And I know a lot of people that have just switched to tablets and like they don't even feel they need a desktop PC anymore.
I mean, why would you need a desktop PC unless you're working on it or playing games on it?
That's about it.
There's really no reason.
That's why I have one.
Yeah, I mean that's why I have.
I play games on it, and then sometimes I do video editing on it. That's it.
Oh, I put my PC through the ringer.
And you don't even need...
that poor thing begs for mercy every day.
You don't even need a desktop to do the video editing anyway. You can do that on laptops. So
yeah, I would.
It's not as good, but like, it's like
I would not do that. But yeah, the sands are shifting, Matt.
It's not going to be boring
In a lot of ways. Yeah, so it's pretty exciting to. Even if we don't like the future, it's kind of exciting to think about it a little bit anyway. Last thing, a couple more things. Pokemon Sun and Moon unveiled this week. Did you check out the debut trailer, Matt?
I did not.
Well, you can watch it right now.
I do. I do like the owl creature, though.
Yeah, he's my favorite.
Yeah,
it's
everyone's favorite.
I'm a Temple alum, the Temple Owls, so he is certainly going to be my starter Pokemon.
It seems to be everyone's starter Pokemon. Like I think we know which version's gonna. Which starter Pokemon is going to be the star here?
The owl's too cute. How could you not like the owl?
I'm even a cat person, but I got to go with the owl.
Yeah.
Like, look at that.
There he is, Rowlet.
Got a little leaf bow tie. Like, come on.
That is pretty adorable. Otherwise, the game looks exactly like
all
Pokemon. The other games.
What do you want? It's Pokemon.
Yeah, so for our poll of the day today, it was basically about Pokemon, whether you're okay with it not changing. And, by the way, get involved with the polls of the day. Great conversation have been going on in those if you haven't been checking them out so far. It looks exactly the same as the last Pokemon game, which looked exactly the same as the one before that.
Which I didn't play, so I'm kind of fine with it. I mean, I've been out of the Pokemon game for a while. I mean...
the last one I played...
Now you're what, almost hitting close to 1,000 Pokemon at this point, and I can't.
The last one I played to completion was Black and White.
I think the last one I played to completion was Soul Silver.
Yeah. Around the same
era.
A
while. Yeah. And that was obviously a remake of the second one, so...
Now I would play a console version of Pokemon if they would put out a big budget console version of Pokemon.
Now you're talking crazy.
Yeah, I know.
It's like you'd want the system on it. It's on to sell or something.
Yeah, exactly.
It doesn't make any sense.
But, so anyway, there's a poll up on the site right now, poll of the day about Pokemon, if you have a particular passion for it.
I have been playing a Game Freak game this week, though.
Oh, Pocket Card Jockey?
Pocket Card Jockey, yeah.
That might be the sleeper hit of the year, or at least the first half of the year.
I enjoy it. It's adorable. Like, it's a fun little like, weird game, and, like, the game itself constantly talks about how stupid it is.
Yeah,
like,
it's been getting really good reviews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's it's that kind of weird quirkiness that I wish we saw more from Nintendo on.
Yeah.
That is yeah, you don't have to like have all these weird gimmicks and crazy things. Like you just have to like have some interesting ideas and the solid gameplay. And the other thing that I noticed that I was shocked by is it has no 3D.
Oh, really?
If you turn the 3D on, there's no 3D. It literally doesn't have any. I'm like, oh, I wonder what the horse race looks like in 3D, and it's nothing. I'm like,
probably for the best.
I'm not complaining necessarily, but I'm just like, it shocks me that Nintendo would have reached a point where they would not require,
game.
At least in their own games, they usually would require you to support the basic functions they sell their hardware on, and all of a sudden you don't have to have 3D in a 3DS game.
Well, I think that just shows that even Nintendo at this point is tossed in the towel on the 3D of the 3DS. So, one last thing we want to talk about, you may be wondering, Doom will be coming out on the East Coast of the United States in about 2 hours.
Yep.
Couple hours.
But don't you dare leave.
Yeah. There are no reviews for Doom out yet, and there are not going to be any reviews for Doom out.
I haven't even seen any impressions.
Because the codes for Doom just went out today.
Oh.
And Bethesda said that, the usual excuse when they don't send out code early, which is, the network portion of the game is very important, and we don't feel like you could experience the game the way it's meant to be experienced if you don't have the... Well, what they fail to mention or think that we're too stupid to remember is that they just did a multiplayer beta. Like, total crap on this one. Like, there's really no even debating it. Like, they're totally holding this game back from critics for fear. They're not confident in the product.
Well, to me, that's just, like, if I was just a run-of-the-mill consumer, I'd just be like, well, cancel the pre-order, wait to see what people say.
I think, sadly, that's probably not going to happen. I think it will probably save them some cash if the game does, in fact, end up not being good. I mean, I enjoyed the multiplayer beta. It didn't set the world on fire for me, but I enjoyed it. No one's really seen the campaign, by the way. Like, today, some 40-minute videos went up, and before that, really, the only campaign footage was footage that was shot off a screen at an event. Like, they have in trailers, like their campaign trailers where they cut it all up and you can't really tell. They've really hid the campaign on this game, which
Doom is not a blind buy to me. Like, I know it's like an iconic franchise, but it's like this is so far removed from like the people who made Doom that like this is absolutely wait and see. If I'm gonna have to, if I'm paying for it, it's a wait and see for sure.
Also, an unfortunate week for it to come out. There's another big game that was released this week that might steal a little bit of its thunder.
A little bit.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a wrap. Oh, other than I mentioned, EA and Ubisoft both saying that they think consoles are going away.
Yeah.
When those two mention it.
Yeah, when those two, they're driving to a degree. It's like you can't support a console without those guys supporting that console.
Yeah.
Because no first party, even Sony can't produce enough games to make up for the software volume you'd lose by not having EA and Ubisoft on your system.
Yep, for sure.
So, and I wonder, if they don't think consoles are going to be, does that mean like they're looking forward to moving into their own sort of self-publishing streaming service? Is that their plan?
Well,
EA Origin becomes that. U Club? Is that what it is on Ubisoft now?
Yeah.
Like those eventually just become the only way you can buy EA.
And Ubisoft games. The publishers want that to happen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
No longer
cut out the middleman.
Cut out the middleman. You don't have to pay distribution or manufacturing costs. You don't have to give a cut of your profits to your revenue to Valve. Yeah.
It was crazy.
EA's already done that, obviously, but
yeah, I was leaving my place today to come over to do the show, and I looked at my Wii U sitting in my entertainment center, and I realized that I may never play it again, like ever, like really, like maybe if I play Tokyo Mirage, like they're really maybe Paper Mario.
I have Tokyo Mirage pre-ordered, so I'll turn it on at least one more time.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it and I was like, that's kind of sad. Like that thing may never be turned on again. I mean, it probably will be. But then I thought about the other part of it.
You'll have to turn it on to eject the disc that's in it before you put it in storage.
Right. Yeah. And then I thought about the fact that if there really is just one more generation of consoles, like, I will only ever have one more piece of Nintendo hardware. Like, that's crazy to think about.
Well, until they sell you the Nintendo phone.
Right. Knowing Nintendo, it won't just do it like everybody else where you stream it through a PC or your TV or whatever. They will make you buy some little
you'll
gadget.
have to buy like some thing shaped like Mario's head.
Right.
Like
Exactly.
it'll run on like, I don't know, saliva or something. It's just like, kiss Mario on the nose to turn it on.
Yeah, or lick it,
Yeah.
and then you become an internet celebrity.
Yeah.
It's worked before.
It's as easy as that, folks.
And with that, let's get to the Big Six. All right, are you ready, Matt? You ready to talk about what probably will undoubtedly be the biggest video game of 2016?
Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Why not? Where do we start with this one? Story?
I guess so, since that's mainly what it is so far.
First, we should mention how much we've played it. So,
yeah.
How far along are you?
I'm at the very beginning of Chapter 6.
Okay, so there's 22 chapters and a prologue. Mm-hmm. So you're about a third of the way through.
Yeah.
I
feel like I'm where the game is actually finally starting.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of tutorial action up to now.
I finished the game. I played it again a little bit. You open up another difficulty setting once you beat it called Crushing.
Yeah, I remember Crushing.
And I did fiddle around with that a little bit. And
It's
I accentuate a little bit because it was about as fun as jabbing needles into my eyeballs. And I'm playing multiplayer.
I think Naughty Dog's even admitted that Crushing's basically there for the crazy people.
Yeah, and it is.
It's not like grounded mode in Last of Us where it's like arguably like the way you should play the game.
Yeah.
It's like no, this game moves. This is just unfair for the people
that's
who
pretty
really
much,
want to.
You'd have to get lucky, I think, to probably complete the game all the way without killing yourself.
Or you have to just know. I mean, I've watched some live streams of people play the other games on Crushing, and it's like. These people just know every single nuance of the way the game works.
They know all the enemy patterns and all that sort of stuff. So I finished it. The game eval is pretty much done. I'm just trying to cap on a couple more hours of multiplayer before I finish it off and publish it to Sifted. But you're going to get full-on impressions right here on GameFace right now. So, Matt, what is your overriding impression of the game, having played a third of it so far?
My overall impression of the game is that it's a lot more like Last of Us than I'd prefer.
Yeah.
In terms of just sort of the tone and structure. It is technically, presentationally, probably the most impressive thing I've ever seen.
Agreed.
It is.
Agreed.
And it's funny how it's like, it's like, a rock face collapses or like a room explodes. I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. But like Elena leans on a cushion on the couch. I'm like, that's the best cushion deformation I've ever seen in a video. That's insane. Like that's, it's all the weird little things.
Oh, you're absolutely right.
Or
the game is just filled.
Or in
with
the thing where he's like,
over the place.
He like is in a tuxedo and like he like bends up and like the back of the tuxedo jacket creases properly as I'm just like, it's crazy.
Oh, it is insane.
They must have had people chained to desks for 90 hours a week doing this game.
Well, they did.
Yeah.
That's not even a joke.
No, it's not. It's really pretty much just what happens. And it's just amazing.
It is absolutely mind-blowing. This isn't hyperbole. This is the best-looking video game in the history of video games.
Yeah, I can't argue with that.
I mean,
there's some games that have had, one particular kind of effect that worked maybe a little better, but as far as total package plus animation plus texture plus art plus motion capturing plus performance capture. I mean, it's
look, I know
unparalleled.
There are PC gamers who are going to try to go after me for this, and you have no leg to stand on. There is no PC game that can touch this game.
I have not seen anything on my Dual Titan X rig that touches this.
You may be able to say,
I mean, yeah, resolution right. With the 4K, 1440, whatever. No, like this is. In terms of like watching
what you look at while you play the video game, there is no game in the history of video games that looks better than this game. There are so many details. Mm-hmm. What you really
even
realize...
like when he's like, hand over handing across like a metal bar, and the bar sags under his weight in the middle. I mean, it's insane.
And the hand is perfectly wrapped around the bar, and then you look at the hand and you can see the veins in the hand.
And little things where there's a point early on where a guy has glasses on his shirt, and he takes the glasses off and flicks them open and puts them on, and it's just like, you're just showing off now.
Yeah.
Like, because the hand, it's not like that kind of video game thing where you see the hand sort of magnetically attached to the glasses and like put them on and then like there's that quick like one frame cut where the glass, you know, they replace the head with no glasses with the head model with glasses.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's just he puts the fucking glasses on his head. It's crazy.
What you realize playing this game, and even being in this industry and business all this time, this game made me see it more than any other. How many corners other developers cut.
Yeah.
It is. Like, this game is just in a whole other class.
Like, it makes me, like, really reconsider all my comments about how the systems are underpowered. Because if you can pull this out of it...
Well, I will say one thing. My PlayStation 4 sounds like it's about to rocket out of my entertainment center and shoot through the sliding glass door into outer space. Like, it is...
You're going to need a Neo
my gosh.
to run this. You know, I almost want headphones at this point because I can hear the PlayStation 4 over my sound system.
It is pushing that system, basically. It appears to be pushing it to the limit. I mean...
Certainly the fans to the limit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Last of Us 2 will blow us away and be even better than this, but man, like, you can just hear that thing crying while it's running this game. Like,
but I don't care.
I don't either. But you're right. It is a technological marvel. Like, I don't know if like there are just awards for like technology every year. I'm sure there is.
Yeah, there's stuff.
Where it's just like
awards and stuff.
Let's just
like
throw like not even just like game related just technology. Period.
Yeah.
Like,
I think this thing's winning a BAFTA whether you like it or not.
I mean, are there is there like a TED award where it's just like who makes the most out of whatever technology they have at their disposal? Because if there is, Uncharted 4 is winning it. I mean, it just, you know, you think you see it all, and then you go to another chapter, and you see something else, or something else happens that just blows your mind. And it's like, you know, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you know, old Uncharted games, they're not drawing much geometry. Fair enough. The old Uncharted games didn't draw a ton of... This game, I have taken more screenshots. I have taken probably 50 screenshots of this game. And I only take screenshots of stuff where, like, literally my jaw just drops. And it's just one after another. Like, you come out of a cave and you just see this vista that just goes on for, like, 20 miles. And it's like, there's no LOD, like, pullback. It's like everything just looks crystal clear as far as your eye can see. It is just... It really, I mean...
I don't remember who said it. I saw it on Twitter, I think. Maybe it was Klepek, but somebody was like... The game's about 8 hours if you play through it, but it's about 70 hours if you have photo mode engaged.
Yeah.
Because you're just constantly taking
I've just been taking screenshots with just the built-in like screenshot tool on the PlayStation 4. I haven't been using the photo mode, but man alive. And then, you know, at first I thought, because in the cutscenes, like the characters look amazing. Amazing. Like their eyes are... just the way that they jut around and like when someone like they convey so much emotion. And at first I thought they were pre-rendered. I was like, oh, these character models look too good. Like these were pre-rendered things. They're just playing like essentially a video that it's being triggered. No. Like I got this crazy gun, my favorite gun called the Copperhead. And in the next cutscene, there's the Copperhead on his back. Like it's crazy. Like, I have never seen real-time facial animation in a video game sell like this does. Like, the only thing I would say is, like, sometimes the glint in the eyes looks a little funky, but as long as the lighting is in a good place for the models and everything, I mean, it is, like, photorealistic. Yeah. It is
the facial
crazy.
Capture is crazy.
It really is crazy, man.
Like they're on a whole nother level. I mean, they're on another level to some movies.
On so many ways, like...
I mean, there's movies that could learn some things from these guys.
Yeah, I mean, I was just blown away. Look, we had seen a ton of it and seen the demos from E3 and the trailers, but man, until you see that sucker on your HD TV, you just can't prepare for it. Like, yeah, just over and over, me shaking my head being like, what? Did that really just happen? Like, do they really take the time to put that in the game? Like, it's so funny how he used to talk about the old Uncharted games, how it was like mind-blowing that he'd walk by something and like rest his hand on it or put his hand up against a wall, steady himself as he walked by it. Like those context-sensitive animations, that is like the bottom of this game. Like that is like...
He still does have a weird obsession with touching everything.
Yeah, I mean, he still does that, but that is like...
But not handrails. He won't touch
you're
handrails.
right, yeah. But that is like the baseline detail in this game.
Yeah.
Like
you can read the titles on the spines of every book in the game.
Yeah.
If there's writing on it, you can read what... He has a lot of copies of of one particular book I noticed in
Yeah,
his
yeah.
apartment or in his house. But it's and the lighting's incredible. You know, it's
The particles. I mean,
evocative.
Just everything, man. Like when you open a door and the dust fly. I mean, it is, man.
And the sound. I mean, the sound design sells it all.
Yeah.
On top of that.
And I mean, look, it is pushing a lot of polys too. Like this scene, like the amount of objects and the people that I walked around trying to find duplicate people in this level that we're looking at right now. I could not find a duplicate person. And this is actually kind of another part of it where it's more sparse, but there's another part where literally there are like hundreds of people. And I walked around, I could not find a single duplicate person. Now, what they do is they randomize clothes. So, like, you'll see, like, the same hat on another person, but you'll never see the same person with the same hat, shirt, pants, whatever. Like, it's like a dream. It really is like a dream. And look, before we move on to kind of talk about other elements of the game, one thing I would say is that this game is probably worth buying just for the graphics alone. I mean, I don't know if I never thought I would ever say that about a game, like in my entire life. And honestly, this game is worth $60 just to go on the tour. Like, just to see what is possible with video games when you have somebody who's really skilled and really dedicated and has a mountain of money to make it happen. I mean, it's that impressive visually. And it's just one thing after another after another. I was just blown away, and it gets better. That's another thing I love about this game. Old school games used to be like that. Like, the first levels would be very simple, and as the game kind of wore on, they got better and better until, like, the last level was, like, the best level that you play. This game is like that. It has that old school aesthetic. It's like the farther you go, the more jaw-dropping the vistas, the more insane the set-piece moments. It's, yeah. But
I can see that early on already.
Yeah.
Like, because I had to stop at Chapter 6 where they end up in a new area. It's the first area you really see that's like big and open. And I'm like, whoa! But I gotta go sleep. You know? It's like, I couldn't move along.
Yeah. But, and there's always a but.
There's always a but.
And this game also has buts.
Very well modeled butts.
Yeah. I'm not talking about the literal butts. I'm saying the visuals are amazing, but everything else, in my opinion, doesn't quite hold up to it. The story is good. It's not amazing. I do feel like it's tough. I don't want to spoil anything, so I want to choose my words very carefully. I guess the best way I could put it is I feel like I was duped a little bit. At least my expectations for what the story was going to be and what it ultimately was were two entirely different things. And sometimes that's fine.
Right.
In this case, I don't think it's fine. It still has a good story, and it's really just about the history of Drake.
Right.
It goes way back to when he was a kid, living with his brother in a Catholic orphanage, and then just starts from there. And then it flashes back to them as kids here and there throughout the game as well. But it's really just about Drake coming to grips with who he is and what he's been doing his whole life. But I felt like they kind of did all that in, like, Uncharted 3.
Yeah, I'm very early. I'm still maybe a third of the way at this point. But already I feel like it's review, especially from Uncharted 3.
Yeah.
And my main problem so far, and I hate to say it because I am a Troy Baker fanboy, and I also know him in real life, and I love him. He's a fantastic. But his character, he plays Sam, Nate's older brother. And Sam, above all things at this point, reminds me of Poochie from The Simpsons, where they inserted the useless dog, like the dog nobody cared about, in Itchy and Scratchy, and like Homer's like, it's like, when Poochie's not on screen, all the other characters should be saying, "Where's Poochie?" And like that's basically where I am with Sam at this point, where like all of a sudden he comes in and I'm supposed to care that he's like this brother that was never mentioned before, and I'm like, nothing about the motivation for what they have to do to help Sam is great.
Yeah.
But I don't see why that couldn't have been like Chloe or Sully or another character that I already knew and cared about.
I'll say this much. They do a better job of developing him as the game goes on. Like, by the end of the game, I actually did care about him, but I would agree at the beginning, I was like, what's the point of this guy? Also, it just seems a little
He just
odd.
feels like he takes up so much of the first part of the game that I'm like, I felt like they were marginalizing the characters in this series that I actually came to see.
Yeah.
You know? And there's a little bit of,
Elena doesn't play a big part in the
No,
game.
Elena is barely in it, and I don't like that because I like her character a lot, and I like the interplay. I always like the interplay between Nate and Sully and Elena.
Yeah.
And there's basically none of that here.
Yeah.
And like the scene with Elena, there's an early
better.
scene with Elena, and it's great. But
Yeah.
I think a lot of that is, I sit there and I wonder how much of that scene was in the script and how much of that scene was because the two actors have worked together for like almost 10 years and they just know how to make that scene work.
Well, eventually a big part of the story becomes Drake and Elena's relationship as well.
I mean, you see that warming up.
Yeah, and it does get better, I'll say that much, for both her and for his brother.
Yeah, I just don't feel like the fourth game in a series needs 3 hours of tutorials.
Yeah.
And I know you can turn the tutorials off, but that's not the same. That doesn't help me because the
This
levels
game
are clearly
doesn't need any tutorial.
No,
We'll get to that
the levels are clearly designed to walk you through all the basic functionality of Uncharted, and I'm like, I know how to drop off a ledge, guys. Like,
Let's talk
you
about
don't need to
gameplay,
base a whole section of the level around how I jump from one thing to another anymore.
Yeah. Well, we'll talk about gameplay in a second. Let's finish up kind of the story a bit. So, my biggest gripe with this story is that there are huge plot holes. Like, you've already come to one. Like, how did he seriously not know that his brother was alive the whole time? Like,
you think someone would have...
He's Drake.
Yeah.
It's like, what, all of a sudden he became an idiot? Like, that, and it... So later on, you're trying to find, and again, I have to dance around this a little bit. So later on, you're trying to find something, and you're going the usual Drake way of trying to find it, going through caves and jungles and, putting your life in peril, when really all you had to do is use a helicopter or a boat. Like, literally, it kind of nullifies, like, the whole story. And the whole game, for that matter. Like, it's not like what they're trying to find is, like, hidden away inside some mountain or something like that. Or there are parts of the game that are like that. But, like, the big goal of the game essentially was sitting out in the open all this time. And not only are they taking a convoluted way to get there, like, there's these other people who are trying to get it who have billions of dollars to invest in it and never bothered to, like, fly a plane or a helicopter over the area that they're searching. Like, it's kind of a deal breaker, to be honest with you. It just kind of, like, once you realize...
It sucks when your story can be broken by Google Earth.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And, this is Drake. Like, this is, like, the world's greatest adventurer, like, archaeologist.
I'm too early to know exactly but it's like, it also feels like what they're after in this is way smaller than what...
That's not true.
Not yet?
No.
Because I don't see anything yet, because, like, you're looking at, like, the lost city of Shangri-La, and you're looking at, like, the Pillars of Iram and all that. Yeah. And it's, like, legendary stuff. And, like, so far I feel like they're doing the Temple of Doom thing, where it's like, well, he found the Lost Ark of the Covenant in the first movie, in the third movie he finds the Holy Grail, in the second movie he finds a bunch of glowy stones.
Right, yeah.
Like, really?
No, what they're going after isn't as legendary or well-known, but that's just what's going to happen. It's like the law of diminishing returns.
Right,
it's the fourth game.
The MacGuffin's got to be there and get
the
you
payoff
moving.
is bigger, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So, the story's good. I mean, for video game stories, the story's great. I mean, look, most video game stories have huge plot holes, and the writing is good, the voice acting's incredible.
So far, it's not really what I wanted out of the farewell Uncharted game.
Yeah, I think a lot of people might agree with that. Let's move on to talk about playing the game. Now, you kind of already mentioned that you didn't like the hand-holding so much. I honestly didn't even really notice that. What I noticed is that, like, the game gives you everything at the beginning of the game, and then you never get anything else after that. Like, there's a couple little tools that you get that don't really change much.
That's sort of Uncharted, though.
Once you get the rope, that's pretty much it.
And I have a problem with the rope, too.
So...
as much as I enjoy it.
This kind of ties back to my overall impressions of playing this game, which is that it feels like an old game. It feels like the very best game made last generation, which was what Uncharted really was, or at least one of the better games made last generation. Because it's like, maybe we're just spoiled now of actually, like, having progression in games, like where you start as... That's RPG elements, basically, where you start as something and then morph into something more powerful and greater.
It seems like the interactive equivalent of, like, making sure a character is different at the end of a narrative than they were when they started. And, like, there's, in a game, I think some games have developed this sort of language that sort of like your character develops in a gameplay sense alongside the way they develop in the narrative sense, and by the end of the game you have a very it feels very satisfying to have gone through that narrative journey with that character, but also to have gone through that gameplay journey with that character.
Yeah, and that's what you're not getting here. Like you do get the story side of it, where the character evolves,
which you know that's going to happen
but it's also evolving
in Naughty
as
Dog, but
the
like
player too, like as your skills. Like, a lot of games like that, like you get better as the player as the game goes on. I never felt like I got any better at this game. Like, in fact, even like in the last like act of the game, I was still hitting the wrong button to reload my gun.
Yeah,
and to
they
take
changed
cover.
that, didn't they?
Well, I don't think they did. I think that's I don't remember. Don't quote me on this, but I think that's the way Uncharted's always been. It's just that every
triangle.
Other game uses square to reload the gun.
No, because it's triangle to reload in this, right?
Right.
And my brain is telling me it was a shoulder button before.
I don't remember. To be perfectly honest, I don't remember.
I played the Uncharted remaster collection. I still can't quite, but I swear it was a shoulder button to reload in Uncharted.
All I know is that every other game...
R1 to reload, Short Raver says. Yeah.
All I remember is every other game that I've played that you shoot guns in the last, 10 years, square has been the reload button. And so, literally, you're in the taking cover. Normally that's the X button on the PlayStation controller. I think it's, circle.
It's circle and Uncharted, yeah.
Yeah. It's just why? Why?
Well, the circle that's always been
right.
how
But
it is.
but it's at a certain point, it's you're just kind of being pompous by having your own control scheme. It's I just thought that was silly. The controls themselves work okay. I never really got good at shooting. There's no reticle on screen until you go into the over-the-shoulder view to shoot. Mm-hmm. So you can't aim or get your shots lined up before you pop out of cover. That I never got a handle on my brain calculating where the center of the screen was, so as soon as I went into cover, I was on the target I was trying to shoot. Even at the last sequence of the game, I still could not pop out of cover and have my reticle be where I wanted it to be.
I'm not having too much trouble with that, but I am having a lot more trouble getting reliable headshots than I did in the other Uncharted's, at least the PS4 remasters, because I just played through those this year.
I don't even remember. Did they have reticles in them?
Yeah.
Before you...
I don't think so, but I think... For whatever reason, I think where your reticle appears when you pop out of cover in 2 and 3 is a little more logical than where it pops up in this game. Because I've noticed the same thing where the reticle is not where I think it's going to be when I pop out. And
I see the Defense Force in the chat already.
And it's it's
not. I see you guys in there.
It's not a crazy problem. I certainly haven't had a difficulty getting through the shootouts or anything.
Yeah.
They're fun.
Well, yeah,
and I do think
it's not a hard game.
No, but I do think it until you pick crushing.
Yeah.
I do think the controls, at least the gunplay controls, are smoother for me than they feel a little weightier and a little smoother than they did in Uncharted 3, at least.
I still feel like they feel floaty. And
I think there's a little float to them, but I think there's less float than there was before. It feels good to me, more than the others did. I feel like it was the actual gunplay and aiming and all that feels like it has progressed at least a little bit.
I think it might be a little better. I still think it's not up to scratch with the
Maybe
better
not.
games, to be honest with you. I do like the added ability of death from above, where you can jump off a cliff and come down and take out enemies instantly. The addition of stealth, I like it because it does give you a little flexibility in how you can take on each scenario. You don't just have to kill everyone, and there was stealth in prior games, but here it's more of a prevalent element. And
there's an actual stealth meter thing that lets you know when someone sees you and stuff.
Yeah, the enemies have meters above their heads and a couple different alert levels, so you know if you have time to run away. And there's the levels are designed around it now, so you have patches of high grass, and you can kind of see how Naughty Dog has designed the level. So if you want to completely stealth the level, you probably can. I never managed to pull it off. Eventually, I always got caught at least by one guy.
That's my main gripe with it, gameplay-wise, is that there's a couple of things in this game that have mostly been added for this game. They're new elements, like the short grass or the grappling hook, and they are so gamey that they pull me out of the world. It's like this game looks so good presentationally, it's so believable, it's so realistic looking down to the pebble on the ground, and then he's got his magic grappling hook that retracts into his belt when he's done, or he crouches down to completely visible in short grass where you're I'm wearing a white shirt, I'm in grass, like, and the grass is moving whenever I look around, and some guy 10 feet from me can't just literally see me there. It's weird.
Well, it also has the Last of Us thing where the enemies don't see your sidekick.
I mean, on one hand, I'm glad they do that.
I mean, that's the worst, really.
Yeah. But, I mean,
you have, like, Elena's, like, right out in the middle of an open field, and, like, they're, like...
It's super weird that they didn't, like, concentrate on fixing that
because
after
that's the biggest complaint from The Last of Us.
And, like... But it is interesting to note that I don't think The Last of Us has the lack of progression issue because you're constantly inventing new weapons and upgrading your weapons.
You're absolutely right.
That you really, Joel feels much more powerful at the end of that game than he does when he starts.
Yep.
And I'm a little surprised that there's not some element of that in this game.
That's why I said it feels old, because every game now has at least some element. Sometimes it's light, like in Quantum Break, but it still has it.
Like, I don't necessarily expect that from Uncharted. I don't think it's really going to bother me that it's not there. But it's one of those things that I thought, like, maybe we might get, especially when they're doing things like adding, like, dialogue choices and stuff.
See, I'm the guy who I don't look at any game and say I expect this. Like, I just pick up the game and play it. Either I enjoy it or I don't. Either I enjoy the elements that are in it or I don't. I don't say, oh, well, this has never been here before, so don't be mad, Shane, that it's not there. Like, the bottom line is, I don't like that it's not there. I don't care whether it was in a prior game or not. The fact of the matter is, I'm evaluating this game for the game that's there. I'm not thinking about, like, I shouldn't have expected this to be. Like, the bottom line is, I'm so used to playing games that have actual progression in them that when I play another game, forget the name of the game or who made it or what platform it's for, when I play another game that doesn't have it, it feels like something is missing. And that's how I feel about Uncharted 4. There's a lot of stuff that other games have that I really enjoy that could have very easily been a part of this game that aren't there. And it, in all honesty, like, and I saw like a lot of people who have reviewed the game saying, oh, I was bored by the game, and then they'd say, but I did sit down and play it like all in a run, and I could understand where if you try to plow through this game like that, parts of it would start to seem monotonous and repetitive and samey. It's saved by the graphics a lot of times. But I didn't play this game that way. Like, I got it, like, last week. I played it for about, probably 8 hours or something like that. And then I was completely indisposed over the whole weekend, and it just sat there for 2 days. And then I came back on Monday and started playing it again. So I actually did break up, like, my play sessions. I didn't just power through it in, like, a day or two. And just as a note, you can finish this game in about 12 to 15 hours. So you could conceivably, if you really were dedicated, beat it in, like, a weekend or in a couple days. But that's not how I played it. Like, I actually did break it up, and, like, I would work during the day, play a few hours at night. Like, I never sat down and marathoned it for, like, 9 or 10 hours straight or anything like that. And I still found it to be a little boring at times because the platforming is, like, even Naughty Dog knows that the platforming is completely irrelevant because you get the story while you're platforming. Like, the characters talk to each other. And it's done, the game has done it since, I think, 2. I think was the first time we really started doing that. In this game, like, you get a lot of the best story notes while you're platforming. Like, that's where you get a lot of, like, the insider information, a lot of background, a lot of lore. And there's lore in this, too, because there's stuff that you pick up and you can read and find documents scattered everywhere, and I like that. But all the platforming in this game, it's so easy and so automatic that it's just like, why is it even there? Like, to tell a story as a vehicle for the story, I don't know. I feel like in a lot of ways, this game has been lapped by a lot of other games that won't get anywhere near the prestige that this one gets because of the way it looks. I mean, and like I said, it's worth buying just to look at it. Like, it's worth the $60, but I think people are, when they're like ragging on journalists who are saying that they got bored by it, they're just saying, oh, because you played it like 12 hours straight. That's not really why the game is boring at times, because it is very samey and like, the set pieces in the game are amazing. There's one part where an entire house like literally crumbles around you, like around you. And those set piece moments are great, but I also felt like a lot of the set piece stuff was kind of subdued in this game. Like this, what we're seeing right now, this demo, is honestly probably in the top 3 moments in the entire game. And it's great, but I feel like it definitely took a step back. Maybe it was a conscious decision by Naughty Dog to dial it back a little bit. I don't know. But I do feel like there aren't as many like moments where you're like I'm more blown away by the technical prowess of this game than like the, oh my god, the train is like tumbling over itself and the motorcycle slid under the train while it, like, there's not as much of that in this game. And some people may like that, some people may not, but I think that's what has contributed a little bit to the monotony of playing the game, and some people saying that they were bored while they were playing it. And the fact that the platforming isn't great. It's not even that it isn't great, it's fine, but it's just automatic. Like, there's no risk to it, other than like when you try to fall and like the input lag, and you try to like catch a ledge, and the input lag like keeps you from catching a ledge and you fall or whatever. So looking at this game, amazing. And again, worth the money, in my opinion, just to experience it and see what your PlayStation 4 is capable of. But I honestly didn't have a ton of fun playing this game. Like, I don't know, there's moments that were great, and there's plenty of moments of awe. But, like, I honestly did not think the shooting was very good. I thought it felt very floaty. Like I said, I never got a handle on the aiming. A lot of the traversal, because so much of it is automatic, like when the heat is on and you're trying to take cover, like sometimes they'll take cover on the wrong side of cover and you just get killed. Like, they've solved a lot of the technical things with games to make the game visually mind-blowing, but I feel like they didn't dedicate as much time to making the game fun to play, I guess is a good way for me to kind of sum it up. The vehicle controls, I've seen some people complain about those, but I honestly thought that the Jeep controls, when you're mudding, are freaking amazing. Like, I don't know if you've ever gone mudding in a 4x4 before.
Not so much.
I have. Growing up in rural Pennsylvania,
I think
mudding is a part of life growing up. And I will tell you that it is dead on. I mean, they freaking nail it. Like, what it's like to be in a 4x4 in mud, trying to find that one rock to catch a grip, like one of your tires on. So
Clearly research was done.
Yeah, apparently.
A lot of mudding over at Naughty Dog.
Yeah. But I thought the Jeep controls were amazing. Like, the physics in the game are incredible. Like, there's a lot of, like, block pushing puzzles in the game. And, like, in a lot of games, if you're, like, pushing, like, a square or a block to solve a puzzle, like, it doesn't react to, like, the slope or whatever. Like, in this game, like, if you're pushing it and it's on a slope, you have to fight the gravity and hold the stick against the direction of the hill to keep, like, the thing you're pushing to, like, go straight. Just little stuff like that. Again, just amazing. But when it comes down to it, what you're doing 80% of the time playing a game is platforming and shooting. And I feel like both of those elements came up short. Neither's terrible, but when you're talking about, like, it's a 9.4 on Metacritic right now, like, to me, those are things that should be not only just really good, but transcendent to get that type of a score. And, you know, what was okay back in 2009 through, you know, whenever Uncharted 3 came out is not okay now. And I feel like Naughty Dog, when they built this game, they were like, that's what we did then, people liked it, we're doing it again now. And it just, and like I said, in a lot of ways it feels like the best older game you've ever played.
Well, maybe that's why this is the last one.
It could be.
Maybe they just don't want to evolve it beyond that. They think that's what the Uncharted DNA is. And they're like, well, there's not really anywhere else to go.
Yeah.
So we're just going to blow the doors off this one and make it the most amazing thing you've ever seen visually and technologically. And that'll be that.
Yeah.
And maybe, you know, I mean, I don't know if The Last of Us needs a sequel, because The Last of Us sort of did what it needed to do. But like that world seems maybe more fertile ground to kind of create a game with the progression elements you're talking about that would take it to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, maybe that's Last of Us 2.
That might be part of the plan.
I mean, look, it could be a case where Naughty Dog's like, look, we have a fan base that has grown to expect this from this series. And I think if I had to put a label on this game, I would say it is the perfect game for casual players. Like, literally, if anybody...
Well, Uncharted has been positioned as that for a long time. I mean, remember the commercials were just like, it's your girlfriend will think it's a movie, you know, like, which is like kind of shitty, but like... they pushed that idea that it's just like, it's just like watching the best action movie ever, and it's like, there's been a couple times already in the game where I'm just like, man, I wish this was just a movie, so I didn't have to play this part.
Well, I mean, the parts that you've been up to, you've been sitting and watching a lot.
Yeah.
Like, the early, like, chapters of that game, like, you hardly do anything. Like, you literally just sit, and it feels like
walk from point A to point B, or like,
it feels like a Kojima
like,
game at first. And I will say that gets better. Like, eventually, the cutscenes start to melt away, and you spend a lot more time actually interacting with our interactive entertainment. But, man, that start is
yeah. I mean, I hit a point where, like, it was, when I hit chapter 6, I looked at the clock. I'm like, oh, I gotta go to bed. It's, gotta go to work in the morning. And it's like, I felt like I hadn't gotten to play yet.
Yeah.
And I'd been playing for like 3 hours.
The other thing I would say is the first handful of chapters go by real quick. Mm-hmm. Like, I think I made it to like chapter 5 or 6 in like an hour and a half or something like that. Eventually, the chapters get longer. Like, there was a couple that lasted like an hour and a half, like in the middle of the game or whatever. So, yeah, but I would say this is like the ultimate casual video game. It's easy, it's got a good story, it's got a love story, it's got sibling stuff going on in it. It's very pretty, which, a lot of casual people, when you talk to them what they care about, graphics are like way up here. Like, it is really like the penultimate casual video game.
What's the ultimate?
I guess it would be the ultimate. Yeah. So, if you're watching this or listening to this and you're like the casual player who only buys a few games a year and, the thought of playing a game like Dark Souls makes you recoil in horror, this game is for you. Go buy it. You will freaking love it, lap it up, eat it. You'll be sad when it's over. In my opinion, by the time I got to the end of the game, I felt like it had gone along a little too long. Like, it kind of weren't... Because you're not gaining anything as you go. You're doing the same thing in the last hour of the game that you were doing in the third hour of the game. You never gain any abilities, and the ones that they do give you are not significant enough to really change the game. And so doing the same thing over and over and over again, even if it's only for like 15 hours, it gets old. Like, it got really old. And I don't know. It's been interesting to watch the reviews for this game because I feel like a lot of people are just getting caught up in how gorgeous it is, which I could totally see that happening. It is absolutely mind-blowingly, gobsmackingly gorgeous. But when you start settling down and you're about 11 or 12 hours into the game and the plot has kind of lost a little bit of its steam and you kind of know what's going on and a lot of the mystery's gone and you know what the goal is, you're just trying to get to the goal, it was a little bit hard for me to finish the game. I hate to say it, but maybe they should have cut a little bit of the game. It's also weird.
I'd say 2 of the 3 Uncharted's, the previous Uncharted's, I would say, are a little longer than they need to be.
Yeah. I will say one thing they did improve. The puzzles in this game are a little better. Like a lot of puzzles in games, kind of once you figure it out, they're easy. But just kind of figuring out what they're asking of you was kind of fun. And again, like with the presentation values that the game has, they managed to put like a really nice slather of paint over top of their puzzles. So I thought they were a little bit better. But a game where you just, here's what you have, and then you use that same set of tools for the whole game, like they just really aren't games like that anymore.
It's not common.
Like, you even look at like...
I mean, unless you're talking about like, I don't know, Match 3. I mean, there are games where it's like you play the main form of gameplay, like... Pocket Card Jockey is the same thing over and over and over and over. But, like, I don't know, like, see, I've never been bothered by the fact that Uncharted is the same formula over and over. Just as long as you keep, like, wowing me with crazy set pieces and crazy... Because, the Uncharted, I mean, obviously this is a totally different level than what we've gotten in the previous 3 games. But Uncharted has always been sort of like a gold standard for at least console graphics at the time of their releases. And, like, as long as you keep delivering that and this, like, gunplay that, while not spectacular, like, keeps me going.
Serviceable, yeah.
Like, I'm pretty much fine. My foibles and reservations come entirely with the story because I have grown attached to these characters.
Yeah.
And
I think you'll be satisfied with it ultimately.
Because at this point, I'm a little concerned that it's not going to do justice to these characters in deference to this new character that it seems to think that I should care about as much as Drake does, and it hasn't. Sam is not sold to me yet.
I think your perspective on that will change. I don't think you'll be disappointed in the story ultimately.
I mean, it is. I mean, I didn't play it last night. I played it, Tuesday night, and I am like eager to like go play it now. After we're done here, I'm going to go home and play it. I'm looking forward to it. Like like you say, I wouldn't want to binge this one the way like I think a lot of reviewers had to. Yeah. And
I do not recommend that, by the way, when you get it. Like, because I feel like I didn't even binge it, and I felt like it got repetitive after a while.
But I think like it's like a chapter or 2 a night.
Yeah.
Like is a good pace.
Yeah, you're probably right. That's probably a good way to do it. Multiplayer, I've played...
I haven't touched that yet.
I played the multiplayer beta, and I've played a few hours now of the multiplayer in the final version. Unspectacular. Serviceable.
Uncharted.
It's not something you're going to be playing 2 weeks from now.
No. Multiplayer in Uncharted has never held my attention for more than a few days.
It's also pretty limited. There aren't a ton of modes. It's like... this is... I never really felt like it was tacked on in the prior games, but in this one, I really do feel like it was tacked on. I'm surprised they even did a beta for it, to be honest, because it's such a small part of the experience. At least in my opinion, it is.
And also compared to the Last of Us multiplayer seemed to have a lot more meat on it.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, it definitely does, without a doubt. So I don't know that it has a lot of staying power. Bottom line, though, this game is totally worth $60 just for the craftsmanship. I've
already seen $60 worth of visuals.
Exactly.
Frankly, even just 1/3 of the way through the game.
Yep. I mean, go buy it. I think there's a little bit of something for everybody in this game. Even if
you have a PS4, there's no reason not to play this. And if you don't have a PS4 yet, when you pick up your PS Neo, buy this with it.
Yeah, exactly. I can't even imagine what this would look like at a higher resolution.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if they'll have like a Neo mode for this one, but if they do, I'll play it again in that.
Well, if they are going to retrofit for Neo,
there's
one game that they're going to do it.
Yeah, if there's one game to do it with, it's like, oh, you remember that game that blew your fucking mind?
Yeah.
Now look at it.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't even talk about the destruction in the game.
Oh yeah.
You take cover behind stuff and you don't know whether it's going to last or not, and
sometimes it's like, oh, I can sit behind these cinder blocks. Nope, the cinder blocks are going to fall over.
Yeah.
And, it's nuts.
I mean, I could honestly sit and talk for hours just about the technical side of this game. Because as I watch this footage, I keep being reminded of stuff that I experienced while playing it. It's hard to remember it all when you sit down and record a show. But as I watch this, I'm like, oh yeah, oh wow, that's right.
Just how many shards and bits of things are flying around everywhere, and you're like, how is this game still running smoothly?
It's really insane, man. Their programmers, their engineers at Naughty Dog, I cannot believe they haven't been poached. But think about the companies that would be willing to throw the money at the guys at Naughty Dog. And look, I would imagine working at Naughty Dog isn't the greatest thing. It's you get one of those guys out of there and you say, yep, 40-hour week, that's all I want out of you, and we'll double your salary. I think you could probably pluck a couple of the engineers from Naughty Dog.
Yeah. But then, if you do that, do those people have the time to make something like this again?
Yeah, they already have the knowledge now.
Yeah.
It's just build it. Go. And one thing I will say is I do kind of see why the game was delayed now that I've played it. Because there are, for instance, I had crashes in the game. I've never had a crash in a Naughty Dog game in my life, and I had 3 of them. Literally, where the screen just froze, and it would do nothing, and 2 of the times I had to hard reset my console. The 3rd time, I just put the controller down, walked away, used the bathroom, got a drink, and came back, and it had kicked me back to the dashboard of PlayStation 4. The first 2 times, it just hard crashed and wouldn't do anything. I had to, basically, hold the power button in for, 10 seconds.
I've never had a crash on a Naughty Dog game. I can't remember
Me either.
Ever.
Never. Not even, PlayStation 2 era with Jak and Daxter. No. Never. So I had crash bugs.
Only Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
It's the only crash I ever had from Naughty Dog.
Good one. And I've seen some weird, graphical anomalies here and there, textures that flicker on and off, and, some little stuff like that. I mean, look, it's an extremely polished game, and, the craftsmanship on display here is just to think about what's going on, and for those to be the only thing I'm mentioning.
Look at all the wood splinters. It's insane.
Yeah. And apparently there are other bugs that I didn't encounter that they patched. But I did encounter 3 crash bugs, and that's never happened to me before in a Naughty Dog game. So I can understand why it, got a couple slight delays. But mostly, and now that it's patched especially, it seems like it's in a really good place. And 3 crash bugs in 15 hours, not that big a deal.
No.
But yeah, I did really enjoy the game. My eval will be up soon, so you'll get to see sort of my numerical perspective on everything. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to, I guess is the way to put it. I really thought that they would progress the game more than just on a technical level. And in my opinion, that's really what's happened, is they're just here's this new engine, it looks amazing, but the rest of the game is basically exactly the same as the prior games. And some people may be okay with that.
Sounds like a lot of people are okay with that.
Yeah, I don't know about that. What do you mean by a lot? You mean reviewers or whatever?
Reviewers or people... I mean, I have not really seen a lot of negative commentary on this game. People seem Uncharted fans seem pretty satisfied with what they got.
Yeah.
Because it's Uncharted.
Right. All Uncharted fans are getting a gorgeous Uncharted. I mean, that's what you're getting. For me, I would expect more in the fourth installment of a franchise. But they do have fans, and sometimes, if you're smart, you play to your fans, and that's that. And that's definitely what Naughty Dog has done with this game.
There's an if it ain't broke mentality happening here, and I have a hard time blaming them for that.
Yeah, I mean, from a financial perspective, it was probably the right call. Hopefully, maybe we get a new IP out of Naughty Dog. That's really what I want. I want Naughty Dog to start from scratch, make a new game with.
I feel like we'll get that after we got Last of Us 2, but like whoever the team that focused on Uncharted, I'm sure will move on to a new thing.
And I want it to have modern contrivances, like. I don't want it to feel like a game from last generation. Like, I want it to feel like I would like to see an open-world Naughty Dog game. And there's little tastes of that here. Not as much as I thought, because, they showed that Jeep demo, and I was like, oh my gosh, are we going to be able to just drive around, like, wherever we want to? And, like, no. Like, that was just, like, a couple levels areas where you drive the Jeep.
I mean, that's kind of what I thought it would be, like a Witcher 2 kind of thing, where it's like, it's not open world, but there's really big places.
Oh, I mean, Witcher you said Witcher 2.
Witcher 2.
Oh, okay, gotcha, yeah.
Which was, like, not open world, but there were areas where, like,
you're free to roam.
Three very large areas where that game took place, and you could kind of run around wherever you wanted. Yeah. And it wasn't open world, but it was like probably about as big as like an open world like from the PS2 was.
Yeah, but I would love to see Naughty Dog take on an open world game, like
maybe
where you actually have progression. Like again, like a modern game. I mean, that's really where games are all kind of shifting towards. Like open world, fill around with it if you want, but here's a path you can take. Flexibility in how you do things, a little bit of that here as well. But just progression to make you feel like you're actually making progress through something other than hitting the next checkpoint.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what like Druckmann and company now that they're this is if they do a new IP after Last of Us 2, like that'll be the first new IP that those guys have developed like entirely on their own with like their full freedom to do however they want it, and it'll be interesting to see what they come up with.
Yeah,
because you got to think that they've got those ideas in their heads too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, but. It's probably like you said, they got to play to their audience, especially, with the sales of Uncharted.
You can get in trouble if you stray too far from the formula on a proven series.
I do kind of feel though with Uncharted 4, because so many more people own the PlayStation 4 than own the PlayStation 3, who maybe never even really played an Uncharted game. They have a lot of converts from Xbox 360 who have come over to PlayStation 4. Like the door was kind of open there for them to do a little more than what they've done. And have it be better received than if they had released it on PlayStation 3, where they built up all these expectations with the audience that they had. So
I think it's been received pretty well at this point. Like,
I don't know. I mean, I think some of that may be a little misguided. If you watch podcasts with journalists, it seems like the guy who reviewed the game sits and defends it against all the other people on the staff who played it and were like, dude, the game was boring. So I don't know. I'm never going to say, like, one person's right and one person's wrong. It's all opinion. And saying one person's opinion is right or wrong is just bullcrap. But I've watched a lot. I've watched a lot of podcasts, period. And that's kind of been the recurring theme. The guy who reviews the game kind of goes on the defensive a little bit against the other editors on staff who have been playing it and been like, I'm seeing it's good. I'm not seeing the 10 or the 9, whatever that you gave it. So
the 10 from GameSpot was a shocker to me.
1 of 18 ever. And I actually watched the podcast where he defended his score against some of the other guys, and like his arguments were a little flimsy. Like he just basically kept saying what we said for the first 20 minutes of this discussion. Oh my God, the graphics, oh the detail. And then when they actually started saying, well, when you play it though, it's blah blah blah. He was like, all right, but everyone's got its opinions are like buttholes. Everybody's got one.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. I think we already talked about an hour on Uncharted 4. I knew it was going to work out that way. So it's just like the biggest game of the year, and my eval will be going up, and I'll have even more detail on my opinions in that. So let's move on. Next, we're going to talk about something we've talked about a couple times on the show before, actually, but we always hypothesized that it might be happening, but now it has actually come to fruition. Matt, I think we can thoroughly declare that the Toys to Life bubble has popped.
I don't know if I'd even describe it as a bubble in the first place.
Really?
No, because the thing that happened here was that we learned over the last year or two that the Toys to Life like space is not going to grow anymore. Like there's a finite audience that is interested in this kind of game and this kind of product.
But we didn't figure that out until this past holiday.
Yeah, well, Lego Dimensions kind of I think finally proved that. Is like instead of like everybody who was into the Toys to Life stuff also buying Lego Dimensions, the people who were into Toys to Life stuff migrated to Lego Dimensions.
Oh, we should also mention that what prompted this whole thing is that Disney Infinity is no more.
Right.
Disney canceled it. Not only did it cancel the franchise, and it's not making any more of them, it got completely out of video game publishing.
Out of console game publishing again.
Yeah.
They've done this before.
They have done it, yeah.
And the real reason everyone's talking about Disney Infinity canceled is it's the only game they had to cancel.
Right.
Like it was, it's the only thing they're publishing, basically.
Yeah. Well, they used to have Disney Interactive, but then that got moved over.
But then, like, that's a whole different thing. There's a lot of mobile in that, which is still existing. And the mobile stuff is still going to go on.
Yeah.
And they're still going to license their stuff out to other developers and publishers. So, like, Kingdom Hearts 3 is still happening. The Star Wars games are still happening. The Star Wars games are going to start happening a lot, apparently. We're looking at a new Star Wars game every year starting next year.
Yeah, Battlefront 2 coming out next year.
Coming out, like, what, 6 months after the final DLC for Battlefront 1?
Yeah.
Ballsy.
Stupid. You're being polite, I think.
Like, that's a lot to ask me to buy after it took you, like, a year and a half to finish your first one.
It's going to have the new movies in it, Matt.
Whee! Yeah. But then there's another third movie to come out in that, and so what am I... You know,
I think that's a really, really bad decision.
It seems to me that it's just like, you know, the Visceral game's not going to be ready in time, so they have to put something out, and that's a pretty easy fix.
They're like, we'll just snap another one together. Cut and paste one together.
How about a campaign this time, boys?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Anyone?
You know you're not going to get it, though, if it's
Probably
coming
not.
out in 2 years.
Yeah.
And if you do get one, it'll be so crap anyway, you won't want to bother with it.
But yeah,
let's get back to Toys to Life.
I just think everyone migrated over to Dimensions, and you know we've learned that, like, you know, there's a certain number of people that are interested in that space, and there will not be any more. You know, you've got a finite audience. You're trading back and forth between brands, and Disney is famously impatient when it comes to, like, making profit off video game publishing. And so I think it sounds like they just decided, like, we don't really want to go through the hassle of competing in this difficult and, like, limited space, so we're just going to walk away.
Yeah, I think what the problem was for Toys to Life is that, sure, there are new people becoming old enough to play these games every day. You know, kids going from age 2 to age 3 or 3 to 4 or whatever. The problem is they're not keeping the people on the top end of their age bracket. So the kids are turning 12 or 13 and they're bailing.
They're aging out.
They're aging out of it and they're not sticking with it. And so that's why instead of the audience growing, it stays the same. You're losing just as many people off the top of the age bracket as you're gaining on the bottom end of it.
And they did make some I mean, it's been conventional, as someone who follows the toy industry pretty closely because I collect a lot of nerd plastic, it's been conventional wisdom for the last 2 or 3 years. Two things. First, we've lost the children to video games. Yeah. Basically, like, toys are for two audiences now, preschoolers and adults.
You're right.
And, like, you start with, like, preschoolers, once they hit 5 or 6, they move to video games and they don't care about toys anymore, basically. And then you lose them completely through teenage years, and then they come back to stuff as collectors, as adults.
Nostalgia is collectors.
And the other interesting thing is, like, when it comes to, like, stuff like this, especially, like, the major brands, you're looking at a pretty even distribution between boys and girls and men and women once you get over 18.
Yeah.
So toys companies have had to shift their focus to A, target the preschoolers, and B, target the adult collectors. And it's fascinating because for many years, as a Transformers collector, like, the collectors market, like, the adult collectors were, like, something like 10 to 15% of the market, and in the more recent, like, reports and stuff, Hasbro has said that, like, the collectors market is closer to 40% now of the market.
Yeah.
So they've, you know, it used to be like, hey, if we do some little things that collectors like, just consider yourself lucky.
Right.
And now it's like, this line's for the preschoolers, this line's for the 30-year-olds.
Right,
you know? And it's like it's completely changed. So the Toys to Life thing was in part an attempt to say, well, if we merge the toy thing with the video game thing, maybe we can keep these kids engaged with the physical toys a little longer than we would normally, and we won't just lose them directly to digital. And they were right. Like you had, you know, people, you know, you held these kids on some of these things for a few years. Skylanders held them through probably through, like, you know, through 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where they might not have gone there previously. But I think you're right in that as soon as they, you know, break through that middle school range, they're gone. And maybe they hand down the Skylanders to their younger siblings or whatever. But it's like, there's no more room for, like, there's always going to be a finite bracket of, you know, audience in that space. And that's it. I mean, you're going to have weirdo collectors like me who bought all the Star Wars things because I'm crazy. But it's like, you know, but even I waited until the numerous constant clearances that happen of these toys. every other weekend you go into Target or Toys R Us and it's like buy 2 get 1 free, or like buy 1 get the other one half off, like stuff like that. And it's like clearly the stores are having trouble clearing the product out, getting the product off the pegs, because there's never a shortage of them, and unless you're talking about Amiibo.
So let's talk about Infinity.
And I wonder what the whether Amiibo fits this pattern at all, because it's a different thing than these other things.
Here's how I wanted to frame this discussion. So we want to talk about why is it that Infinity is the first one to jump out of the game, and then once we figure that out, then I want both of us to pick in order what of the next 3 will die first.
Fold.
Yeah. So first of all, why was Infinity the one that died first? Because it has Disney characters, and like you said, toys, collectors love Disney. Why is it the first one to fail?
Because Disney doesn't want to try in the game space. Like that's been a problem they've had forever.
We've already said it. We've already established it. Really, it's not about the game. It's really about the toy.
Yeah, but it's also about that's the only game they were publishing and developing in house themselves. And for a while there was nothing. Buena Vista Software was basically stopped doing things for years, and it never. And even at the time, they were mostly making handheld stuff.
Right.
And it feels to me that Disney just wants to focus on mobile stuff because it's more lucrative and it's easier, and it's an easier place to kind of guard their brand. And it's harder to make AAA or AA even console stuff, because they're not even trying with why are there no Marvel Cinematic Universe games supporting that market? I mean, you got the Lego games, which are made by a company owned by Warner Brothers, which is making the DC movies. That's how lucrative that is that Warner Brothers is still willing to let one of their own companies make a Marvel Cinematic Universe game because there's so much money there.
Well, there's a lot of risk in this genre, because if there's one thing we've learned in the industry over the last 20 years, it's that peripherals can completely destroy a company. Completely.
It's a whole separate space. It's a whole separate risk.
THQ was destroyed by U-Draw. Yeah. Literally, a single game with a peripheral took down a publisher that had been in the industry for 15 years. It just took down Mad Catz with Rock Band 4. They're in dire straits now. They're not publishing Rock Band 4 anymore. Rock Band is becoming not viable. Guitar Hero Live is becoming not viable. So, just intrinsically with these games where you have to have a portal and all these gadgets and toys that go with it, you're already playing with fire a little bit by making games that require pieces of plastic.
Well, remember when Toys for Bob, who were the people who made Skylanders originally, when they brought their idea to Nintendo, because they wanted to Nintendo seemed like a good fit for them. They brought it to Nintendo, and Nintendo didn't understand what the hell they were trying to pitch.
Right.
They're like, we don't get it. What does it do? And when you see it, it seems like a pretty obvious idea, right?
Yeah.
But Nintendo was just why would you want to do that?
Well, normally Nintendo gets that stuff before everybody else does.
And Nintendo has certainly learned that the benefit of jumping on that train in the last year or so. I mean, the Amiibo is obviously very successful, and they did team up with Skylanders to make some Amiibo/Skylander hybrid figures. Yeah. So clearly Nintendo got it eventually. But, it's a scary, weird thing to move into actual physical object production if you're a software company, I think. And, we're even seeing some growing pains on that with the Vive and the Oculus here, So it's hard to blame people. And then, you've got, I think Disney Infinity was a little bit of a bandwagon jump. Yeah. Off of the back of Skylanders. And I think Disney Infinity did some really cool stuff, and the toys are very cool.
They're high quality.
They're very high quality.
Yeah.
And I'm sad they're going to go away.
Maybe that's why they're going away, because their toys were too good.
It could be. Disney has a certain standard, and if it's no longer financially viable, then I guess they'll walk away from it. I mean, I wonder how much of it was Disney Infinity specifically, and how much of it was just we don't want to do this game thing anymore.
It could be. All right, so let's start.
And I feel very bad for Avalanche, because I think it sucks that they shuttered them rather than selling them.
Yeah, that's for certain. That was a really poor decision. All right, so let's start saying which ones we think is going to die first between Lego, Skylanders, and Amiibo. Matt, which one do you think is going to die next?
Skylanders.
Yeah. And why?
Because Supercharged did not perform anywhere near what they were
expecting. As of right now, Skylanders is the only of the 4 that is already announced to have a game coming.
Yeah. Well, it's Activision. Of course there's going to be another game coming. But I think Supercharged has underperformed. I don't think the next one's going to perform up to snuff. And I think eventually... I mean, Activision, I don't know how tenacious they are. But look, Lego Dimensions is burning up the charts. comparatively. Lego is already on board with doing that. I mean, it appeals to so many different things, and they've got it selling through so many different outlets and so many different types of audiences that I think they're gonna. I mean, there are people that collect Lego that buy those things just to have the Lego sets. They don't even care about the game. So they've got that going for them. But I think Skylanders going to go first. I think Lego Dimensions will probably shut down next because I guess they have like a 3-year plan to support it as a platform, but I have a hard time seeing them do Lego Dimensions 2 after that.
Yeah.
And I think Amiibo are going to be around for as long as the NX is around, at least.
You pretty much just mirrored I don't even need to make my picks. You said exactly what I was going to say. Skylanders is going next. Skylanders has, all it has is itself.
Yeah.
That's the problem. It's like this isolated... Look, I know it started as Spyro or whatever. Spyro was never a huge character. That universe was never big. It has what it created. It's like Pokemon, but not as good as Pokemon. You have... What Lego has is that it has everything.
Everything, yeah.
Everything.
And the other thing about Lego Dimensions, I think it's very appealing to parents. Like, it's more pricey, but parents are going to be willing to, I'm going to buy your kid the Back to the Future set? Yeah, totally. Like, get your kid into the Back to the Future.
Well, it's like even for us, like, Portal is, there's a Portal. Ghostbusters. Like, Scooby-Doo.
Yeah.
Like, it can work with anything, and so
and I think it doesn't have the limitations that Disney put on Disney Infinity, where you couldn't play like Marvel characters in the Star Wars sets and stuff. But in Lego Dimensions, you can go to Springfield, and Doc Brown and Batman and Gandalf can help clean up like mows.
And they relish in it.
Yeah, it's great. They're totally on board with it.
And I also agree. I honestly think Amiibo will be around forever.
I think Amiibo
as long as NFC chips exist, Amiibo will be around forever. Because
Amiibo is one of Nintendo's pillars now, I think.
Because why Amiibo are going to be successful is because Nintendo, you can use them in all games. Mm-hmm. It's like, even with Lego Dimensions, it's like you get a toy for Lego Dimensions. You can use it in Lego Dimensions. You get an Amiibo, you can use that Amiibo in all Nintendo's games. And even Nintendo gets like some of the third parties to like incorporate it into it. So you get that Mario Amiibo, you can use it in Smash Brothers, you can use it in the new Mario game, you can use it in Mario Kart.
And in theory,
you can use it in Super Mario Maker.
10 years from now, they could make a game that's like, it's going to use all the Smash Brothers U Amiibo.
Yeah.
It doesn't. They can always go back on that and use it again. And Nintendo is probably going to just broaden the usage of Amiibos.
How long... Okay, so we both established we think Amiibo will probably last as long as Nintendo will last. How long do you think Lego Dimensions lasts?
I think Lego Dimensions lasts, I'm going to say 3 years. I'm going to say they're going to run out of steam somewhere in like late 2018.
I would say 2 years for Lego Dimensions. I would say the next Skylanders game is the last Skylanders game.
I would not be surprised if that was the case.
Yeah.
Unless Activision is much more stubborn about pulling that plug than I think they will be.
They have been stubborn in the past a little bit, but they've also got burned by being stubborn, so I have a feeling that they've probably learned from... And again, high-risk business with the plastic, and they know that better than anybody.
Yeah.
My Guitar Hero. They're learning their lesson with Guitar Hero again.
Like, my thought is, like, this year's Skylanders will probably go back to basics a little more than, like, because I think... At this point, you can't quite make the call if you're Activision, I don't think, like whether or not, Skylanders is over, or like, well, people didn't like the car vehicle, like, angle. So, like, if you kind of go back to, like, the core concept of Skylanders again, and that still doesn't work, it's like, then it's over.
Yeah.
Like, people have been lured away, because Skylanders, for a long time, their appeal was, like, they were the only game in town, in the space, and, like, they did some really cool creature designs and character designs, like, there's some really cool, but, like, now you're, like, these things are across the aisle from Han Solo and Darth Vader and Scooby-Doo and Peter Venkman, and I'm like, well, that's a big draw. Like, it's like, look at all these characters you grew up with and love versus that's a weird dragon thing.
That's that's like an elephant crossed with an aardvark.
It has a crossbow. It's like I don't I like a lot of the designs they've done for Skylanders, but they're up against titans.
They're just anonymous, whatevers, So we'll see. But I think at this point, the phenomenon, or whatever you want to call it, the bubble, the phenomenon, Toys to Life.
The Strange Side Road.
Yeah, that was Toys to Life.
That was Toys to Life.
Another peripheral-driven series bites the dust. And best of luck to those that was it Avalanche that made the game?
Avalanche Software in Salt Lake City.
I interviewed for a job there at one point.
Yeah, they've been around forever.
Yeah.
They did the Mortal Kombat trilogy and Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero ports to PlayStation. They did Tack and the Power of Juju.
Oh wow, some real ringers.
They did some classics.
Yeah, they also made a snowboarding game.
They did.
Yep.
Yeah. They were that was
the jack of all trades apparently.
That's a shame. I mean, I was thinking they were going to sell them off like THQ style, and they just shut it up.
They've been around a long time to just be closed like that. So, best of luck to anyone at Avalanche finding new work. You guys have been in the industry a long time. I don't think it'll be too tough for you guys, but
no, those are. I mean, especially the animation people over there, like those guys were amazing. Like all the Disney Infinity animation was so good.
It was,
and so character driven and so careful.
That studio's also gotten better over time.
Yeah. I mean, Disney they visibly improved from one Infinity to the next as well,
and vast improvement from their prior games before that.
Yeah.
So,
and they're good collaborators too because they had so many different studios working on the 3.0 and 2.0, and they grew like those studios collaborations, and like Studio Gobo did like the vehicles in 3.0, and then like they had like a couple of different companies doing the combat and integrating all that. Like there's some very talented people over there. It's a shame to see them go.
Yep. So best of luck to you guys. Let's move on to the next topic. Civ 6.
Uh-oh.
Matt, how big of a Civilization fan are you?
Not as much as I used to be. I feel like I'm constantly chasing that Civilization 2 dragon, and I should probably just admit that, like, I'm old and different now, and it's never going to be like that again. Like, I used to play long into the night, Civilization 2. I used to just massacre civilizations, and I would get sadistic about it. I'd conquer the whole planet, and then I'd surround the last city and just let them starve to death, basically, until they starved down to like one population number, and then I just boom, and then I just nuke the shit out of them. Like I was a horrible, monstrous
You're
tyrant.
Mean.
And like I've just never quite gotten the bug from any of the subsequent ones. I like
really?
Civ. I like Civ. Once Civ 5 had a couple of the expansions in place, I think that game's really good.
It's really good. Yeah.
But again, Civ 6, I'm like, I know that they're saying already in like the Polygon article and stuff, they're like, oh, like we won't need to add any new, any systems that were in 5 are going to be in this one without expansion packs. They'll be there at launch. And I'm like, yeah.
You said that about the last one.
Mm-hmm. Right now, I'm just waiting for you to announce the always online DRM. Okay, like I just don't trust any of this shit anymore.
Here's the thing about Civ is, I'm always reluctant to start playing it. Like I saw Civ 6. They put out the debut trailer. I'm like, oh, it's Civ 6. Yeah, And I think back and I'm like, oh, I played the last one for like 180 hours, and I played the one before that for like 250 hours. And I'm just like, oh, well, I'm not really concerned about this one. I know for a fact if I get Civilization 6 and I start playing it, I will not be able to stop. Seriously.
Yeah.
Like, it is the series that created the phrase, just one more turn. Mm-hmm. Like, that is where it comes from, and it earned it. Like, there's no game like it. The time just... It's like you enter like a time warp when you play this game. Mm-hmm. It's like time no longer exists. Like,
well, it's fascinating how you're like, because you set little goals for your. Oh, I'll take over this side of the continent, and then I'll save it, and that'll be it for the night. And then like something happens that throws your plans into disarray. Yeah. Like you end up in some crazy
army attack some little territory you had. You're just like, oh, I'm not letting that happen.
I'm like 2 turns away from taking the rest of the. I'll have this city, and that'll be the end of it, and then I can fortify that, and then that'll be it, and I'll save the game. And right on that second turn, some jerk comes in from the other side and just like takes the middle city that you've been like you didn't think you needed to defend it because like you had to stretch the thing with it, and now it's like this huge war for the center of this continent that you thought you had secured, and it just goes on, and now it's 4 a.m.
But that's what I find strange about Civ is like when I hear about a new one, I have like no desire to play it. It's very odd. But then when I do finally say, screw it, like
I'll try it.
Right, I'll get it for like $10, $15 on a Steam sale or whatever. I play it and then it's just I'm done. Like I would say for a single player game, it is probably the best money you could ever spend on a video game.
It's up there.
I mean, it at least in the top like 5 percentile. I mean, when you spend, like, even at $60, the amount of play that you're going to get, look, a lot of people don't like to play multiplayer. And, like, even games like The Witcher 3, like, have a hard time competing with Civ. Like, it is just one of those games that once you get hooked into it, and it's like you meet other people who are into it, and, like, there's this, like, camaraderie about it. Like, I don't know what it is.
There's also kind of, like, the way it kind of... It's very good at and that's one of the things I liked about Civ 2 back in the day, was that like narratives form in your head over what's happening, and you kind of you see what's happening with your armies, even though it's just little squares moving back and forth. It's like, you're like, oh, that fight was tough. Like,
it's like I was saying earlier, like I think last week or the week before on the show, we were talking about how when we played games when we were younger, we had to like create it in our imagination. And maybe that's just intrinsic to our generation, where the games when we first played it, like you had to like make up better stuff in your mind than what you're seeing on the screen.
Well, and some of the games are starting to catch up. Like Crusader Kings 2, like has as a function of it sort of like those little story, like narrative creation things as part of its sort of hierarchy and heirs and political intrigue. Like it's sort of it kind of creates that like as part of the actual gameplay. And sort of meets you halfway on that. And then their new game that just came out this week, Stellaris, has a similar thing to Civ in that, like, I haven't played it yet because it's a 4X game, and those games are always those games, and I'm just like, that sounds awesome, and then I like, poke at the interface for like 10 minutes, and I'm just like, I don't want to play this right now. But like...
But I think that's
but Civilization is a much more accessible experience.
It is, but it still has a little bit of that in it. It's like, you know how deep the pool goes, but and you're like
but it's like,
do I want to dive in?
Well, I'll give you an example. Like, so a guy I know on a forum was playing Stellaris, and this is the kind of thing that tempts me on these games like this. He's got an empire, an interstellar empire in this game, Stellaris, and he's but it's a democracy. It's a democracy. So he's trying to explore past these two planets, and one planet is full of humanoids that don't like him and are like protesting against him, and the other planet is full of non-sentient crickets, like a giant race of non-sentient crickets. And the crickets join the humanoids. The humanoids they form like this rebellious faction, and eventually he wins over the humanoids. But that leaves the rebellious faction with the non-sentient crickets, and non-sentient races in the game can't deform like a faction, I guess. So it's like it might be a kind of a bug a little bit. Get it? Bug? Yeah. Crickets. So the crickets are non-sentient. These cricket monsters are basically destroying buildings all over the planet, and there's nothing he can do. So he develops a technology that lets him uplift the crickets into sentient beetle people. But that just creates a new race of beetle people, but it also leaves like a bunch of the crickets still there. And now that the beetle people are sentient, they get a say in the democracy of the empire. And then because there's so many of them, they all vote for themselves. And now the president of his empire is a non-sentient cricket.
That's a bug, definitely.
And I'm like,
that's an oversight.
It's a bug, but it's also awesome.
Yeah,
like
it really
so
is.
It's like stuff like that like you can play for like 100 hours, and then you get a payoff like something so ridiculous, or some crazy military situation that you have to like double think your way out of in a really creative way, like where you're like, well, I didn't intend to do this, but now I'm just going to build a bunch of boats in my back city and send them all the way around to like hit these guys that are pissing me off. Have been pissing me off for like in Civilization. It's like these guys have been attacking this city for 300 years.
Yeah.
You know. And so I'm going to send a boat around over 50 years' time and hit them from the rear.
I think what I've discovered, so I was doing research for this topic and trying to figure out all the new features for Civilization 6, and what I realized is that, like, there really aren't any. Like, they've really just run out of ideas for Civilization, and it's been that way for a while, and I think that's one of the big reasons why it's very hard for me to get motivated to play another one. But the fact of the matter is that it is timeless. And so when you finally, like, get over the, well, I'm not really hyped for the new one, and just play the new one, you find that it's every bit as addictive as the last ones. Like, some of the new features, quote unquote, they're tweaking how Fog of War works. Like, apparently if you've discovered parts of the land in Fog of War, like, there's like a drawing, like, schematic that goes up over the Fog of War or something, which I don't know how that's supposed to work. There's new world wonders. Surprise, surprise. The biggest change, I think, is that cities are bigger. So, you know how cities in this game, it's like a collection of, like, tall buildings that go straight up? Well, now there's, like, suburbs and things out that kind of sprawl out of the cities, which could actually change...
That changes military tactics
a lot.
Substantially.
Yeah, so that's actually one pretty big change. As you already said, all the tweaks that came in the Civ 5 expansions are all part of Civ 6 right out of the gate.
So the Germans would have us believe.
Yeah. The leaders that you choose actually affect like the agenda system in the game instead of them just being like a figurehead. It actually affects how everything plays out on down the line.
I like that. That's a little Crusader Kings 2-ish.
It is.
I like that addition.
They removed one victory type and added another one. They wouldn't say what that was yet. They said that a Teddy Roosevelt quote is what drives the new diplomacy system. He made some quote about how, like, the future of diplomacy will not be with war, because back when he was president, that's what decided everything. War.
Right.
Like, if you had a problem, you went and just killed the other person. And he had the foresight to see that in the future it wouldn't be that way. And they're saying that, like, as the game wears on, when you first start, it is all about war. But as the game wears on, it becomes more about diplomacy and other ways to finish the game.
Well, unfortunately for them, my Civilization diplomacy strategy runs on another Teddy Roosevelt quote.
Yeah.
Which is, speak softly and carry a big stick.
Yeah. I always use war to win these games.
A nuclear stick.
Yeah. At least my first playthrough, I always just use war.
I used to, on Civ 2, I used to build my cities slightly inland, specifically so that when the water level started to rise from me nuking the other countries over and over again, I would have coastal property.
Brilliant.
I was a monster in that game. I was just a vicious monster.
And then, yeah, it sounds like it. And then they said that they have something called Eureka Moments that will give you tech boosts. They're like iconic things that happen in your society that inspire the people, essentially.
Seems like kind of an extrapolation or an expansion on like the great person idea.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of the same thing. Yeah. But that's it. Like...
Again, it's like there's a little bit of if it ain't broke, don't, you know.
But you could also see where a couple of these things that seem really small could end up being huge. So,
like the suburb thing, I think will change the game specifically. You know, because it always sucked when like the enemies like raised the territory. They were they'd like pillage everything as they move through. Like, now I got to build a goddamn road again. You know, it's like But now you're like talking about really affecting some infrastructure maybe and some your economy in a way. You know, because usually if your city was cool, you were set. You know, you'd have to rebuild some stuff, but it wasn't really impacting you tremendously as long as they didn't manage to take the city. But if you're like, I also have to imagine that in certain government types, the people who live in your suburbs are not going to be happy if you're just letting the Mongols run in every 15 minutes. No, it's interesting. I'm probably on board in general, but like part of me is also skeptical the way you are about like, but Civ 5's already like really
pretty
good,
awesome.
so. And I paid like $10 for that, so what do I need to do? You know, I wonder if there's, and it looks pretty much the same. You know, slightly refined visuals.
Well, they haven't really shown any in-game. This is all Civ 5 that we're showing right now. So,
but I mean, like the screenshots are, there's like screenshots of like here's cows in 6 versus cows in 5. It's like, those are cows. You know, I don't. Like,
so before we move on to the next topic, I would say like anybody who's watching this. And look, there are some really young people on Sifted. Like, if you have never played a Civilization game, go buy one right now. Like, you could probably get Civ 4 for, what, $5?
Something like that.
Like,
I mean, Civ 5 with the expansions would be my recommendation.
Yeah, it's the best so far, for sure. But I'm just saying, if you want to try it out on the dirt cheap, Civ 4 is still a great game. And you can literally probably get it for like $5.
I imagine it's under 10.
You'll spend $5 and you'll have a game that you will enjoy playing for literally hundreds of hours. So, highly recommend it. Even if you don't think you're normally into those type of games, I think you might be surprised. So, let's move on. Matt, this is a topic that you're going to have to school me on a little bit. So, we're going to talk about Persona 5. Brand new trailer comes out this week. First time we got new media since like last E3.
Yep. And a release date for Japan.
Well, the Japanese release date.
Which doesn't look good for the home team.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
Was it September 3rd?
I think it's September 29th, actually. Yeah, I mean, look, it's not
September
happening.
something. It's not coming out here.
It's not coming out in the West this year. Which my fantasy
very
game
disappointed.
Is done. It is done as done could be.
Yeah. Well, we had to look up before we went live. We're like, who has Uncharted 4? Like who? I have Uncharted 4.
Yeah. And unfortunately, my game eval will not contribute to the aggregate to bring it down. Just give it a 0.
Get out.
So, full disclosure, I have never finished a Persona game.
Wow.
I've never had to review one, so I've never stuck it out and finished the whole game. I've played a little bit of pretty much all of them, but I've never completed a game. You've certainly spent a lot more time than me. What I want to do with this discussion is not necessarily talk a ton about Persona 5? Because in all honesty, there's not a ton of information out there about it.
I mean, I watched that trailer, and I feel like I still don't know any more than I did before I watched the trailer. I mean, not that I'm complaining, because part of the fun of the Persona, especially Persona 3 and onward, the fun of the Persona games is sort of discovering the world and discovering the systems and how everything works and all these weird characters. So I'm kind of glad they're being very intentionally vague about what's happening. But it's also kind of maddening, to watch this stuff and be like, I don't know, it looks great, but I don't know what to tell you.
So what I want to do with this topic is explain to people why they should care so much about Persona 5, because it gets a good response on Sifted. There's certainly a core group of people on Sifted who are really into the game, but I feel like there's even more people who are like, why are people so into Persona? And why is that, Matt?
I think because it's not like anything else. It comes out of the Shin Megami Tensei series, which is a very long run. Where it goes back to the 8-bit days.
Yeah.
And like Shin Megami Tensei it's kind of like demon oriented, and this is a dungeon crawler more than anything else. And the Persona games were more like kind of standard JRPG takes on the same material. So like there's a lot of demons you use in Persona as personas that are also demons in the Shin Megami Tensei. There's a lot of crossover stuff.
Explain the personas, though. People may not understand what.
So in Persona, it varies, slightly per game, but basically a persona is like a demon or a spiritual monster thing that's attached to a character that is their true form or their true personality or their true fighting form, and they can release it during battle to cast spells or to use attacks or et cetera, et cetera. And there's various ways that works, and kind of the way that works in a particular Persona game is usually the crux of how that game brings you in. And like probably the most controversial was Persona 3, where to get your persona out, you took a magic gun and shot yourself in the head.
Yeah.
So you had all these teenager, high school kids like holding guns and they all had their own. The main guy who played held it to the side of his head like a normal kind of.
They also
but then like one of the girls like stuck it under her chin, and I mean it was dark.
They also use that kind of iconography as like the marketing for the game. Like a lot of the like still images they put out for that game showed like the guy with the gun to his head.
It was almost like the Borderlands cover, where the guy was shooting himself in the head, and it was like the spray out was like screenshots and the game's logo.
Yep.
The Persona games are famous for being kind of dark and creepy and edgy and oddly sexual. There was Persona 1 for the PS1 did come here, and then Persona 2 was weird because it was 2 games in Japan. It was Innocent Sin and Eternal Punishment. And Eternal Punishment was the only one that came here at the time, because Innocent Sin involves a bunch of weird shit, but also Hitler. And then Innocent Sin did finally make it to America on PSP with Hitler, I think they stuck sunglasses on him and changed the name to Führer, as though that it was not even trying, frankly. And it was I always also thought that was weird, because I already played a video game with Hitler, and it was called Bionic Commando on the NES, and his head exploded too, very visually exploded. I'm just like, it was Hitler. It's not like Hitler hasn't been in games before on the U.S. shores, but Persona 3 was notable because it kind of reformulated how the series works, and 4 followed suit, where you're a kid, usually transferred to a new school basically, and it's it's very, very, very Japanese, and it's this very Japanese school, and you hook up with some new friends.
That's something we haven't mentioned really, is the whole school element of the series. Yeah.
Because Persona 3 really crystallized where it's as much dungeon crawling as it is managing your school schedule.
Right.
So during the day you go to class. Sometimes
there's kind of life simulation elements in it.
Definitely, and there's dating sim elements, and you have to form what's called social links with people and other students, and depending on who you choose to spend time with, those social links will improve, and that will improve certain types of personas. So you have to buddy up to the right people to get the right social links to make the personas you want to use more powerful. And there's the people are very dedicated to there's a perfect playthrough. So there's this day at this time you have to go do this and talk to this person, and then there's full walkthroughs of every single imaginable choice in the game. And then usually there's some kind of alternate world or way to jump into some kind of shadow realm where that's where the dungeons are. And in Persona 3 it was this one of the school areas, I think, just turned into this infinite giant dungeon. You'd climb or go down. I don't remember if it was up or down. I finished Persona 3 and the expansion Persona 3 Fez, but I don't remember a whole lot about it because it was so long.
Because it's obtuse as well.
It is obtuse.
It's hard to remember stuff.
And they're
about
hard.
These games.
Those games are not easy. One of the interesting things about Persona 4 is that you don't control the other characters in your party. You just control your character.
Right.
And I think the Vita version might have added a way to control everyone, but I think it's more interesting to just have control of your player character. But so the hook of the game is kind of like you've got these incredibly weird demon alternate universe strange supernatural elements, but you also have this like thuddingly mundane school simulation where
the juxtaposition there is
there's people arguing over what to have for lunch that day, and then 15 minutes later in the game you're in a dungeon killing Satan. It's fascinating.
It's very Japanese.
And the art styles are very striking. The visual design of all the characters and all the personas are unique and
Persona 5 looks incredible.
Oh, they're amazing. Look at all the
it
weird...
looks like a Suda
look at all
game.
even just the UI where they've got that crazy text is everywhere and everything's kind of cartoony and bright and bold and nothing else looks like it.
It looks like a Suda game, Suda 51.
Yeah, I can see that. But it's the Persona games are way more polished than anything
Suda's
ever
of course,
made.
Yeah.
I mean, they've done a fighting game, Persona.
I think that's
Arena.
For me what I enjoy most about the Persona games is that they're really there's lots of wacky Japanese games. In fact, the vast majority of Japanese games are pretty wacky. What people don't realize when they think about Japanese games, they think about Nintendo or Kojima or Sega. There's this whole market of just weird games that are released there, and it used to be more prevalent than it is now. Back when game development was a lot cheaper than it is now. But Persona is a series that has that wacky, but it's still AAA polished, high quality. And that's what you didn't get with a lot of those other games that were kind of weird. Because what happens is Japan focus tests a lot of stuff if they feel like they're going to put a lot of money behind it. And what it does is it gentrifies it and Americafies it. I just made up a word. With this franchise, they haven't done that. They put all the resources and the money and the time behind the game while still keeping it true to their original concept. And I think, to me, at least personally, that's why it sticks out for me in a whole glut. Because, I mean, look, there are so many JRPGs. So many. Not a lot for consoles anymore. But on the handhelds, there are just scores of them. And no one cares about it. We put up stuff for them on Sifted, and, they don't even get, a single, one-up.
These games
I feel sad for them.
These games stick in your head. I mean, if I'm going to go back and play, nostalgically, if I'm going to go back and play a JRPG, if I'm in the mood for, I want to play a JRPG, I want to play something I've already played, I know it's I just want to, kind of immerse myself, I'm going to pick either a Persona game or a Suikoden game.
Yeah.
Those are the two JRPG series I continually go, which is funny because they are very, almost polar opposites.
They are, yeah.
One historical, military drama versus, crazy modern, supernatural, school simulation dating dungeon crawler thing. I mean, it's so hard to pin down, and then you just describing little individual elements.
Panty shot mini games.
Panty shot mini games, and there's a giant bear from another dimension inside your television who actually turns out to be this weird kind of androgynous little boy who has the most annoying voice you could ever possibly fucking imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just on and on and on and on. And then meanwhile, it's don't forget to eat the ramen today.
Yeah.
Because that gives you a strength boost. You're okay,
But if that's what I would say, I think a lot of people...
And the music's great, too. The music is,
It is, it's really weird.
It's legitimately good, but it's, weird choices for it, but somehow you can't imagine it not being that.
It reminds me a little bit like Splatoon, as far as, if you listen to it, you're like, what the hell is that? But this is kind of catchy.
Or Xenoblade Chronicles.
Yeah.
Although I think the music in Persona is much better.
Yeah.
But it's that same kind of, you thought, sort of drop beat pop rock was the way to go with the scene about the dying child.
Right.
Okay, sure, if that's where you want to play it.
Yeah, I guess one thing I would say about Persona before we move on is that it's very easy to look at all the footage that we just showed you and say, oh, it's just another weird Japanese game, but it's really not. It is kind of in another class from a lot of the games that it sadly kind of gets clumped in with.
Yeah.
There's a reason the first trailer for this went up and it did 5 million views in a day, because it is kind of a cut above a lot of the other games that it appears to be similar to.
And if you've never played anything like it, you've never played one of the Personas, I mean, I would probably recommend thinking about picking the strategy guide up with it.
Yeah.
Some of the systems can be real obscure.
Yeah.
What you should really do is just play through the game once and do whatever you want to do.
That's a big commitment.
It is, but the idea is
These games are huge.
Frankly, you need kind of one playthrough to really grasp
You're
what's
right,
going
though.
on
You're
and
right,
how
yeah.
everything works, and then when you play it again, because I played Persona 4 Golden, I think 3 times on the Vita. It's probably the only thing I've done on the Vita for the most part. I think I played a lot of that game in Ninja Gaiden Sigma Black.
Yeah,
but
I've spent the most time with that game on my Vita than the other game. Yeah,
but
easily.
It's just
I never had a game on Vita other than that one where I just was totally engrossed with it and every night played it. It just never happened. Most of the games I played on my Vita, I'd play for a day and then they're gone, and I just never really got sucked into anything on the
Persona's
handheld.
got a polish. It's got a personality. It's got a heart to it.
It does. It's hard to put your finger on it, but it does. Yeah.
And it's something that doesn't come. There used to be a time when you could find games like that coming out of Japan, mainly RPGs around the PS2 era. That Persona 3 was still a special thing, but there was a lot more like it at the time. And now Persona is pretty much the last man standing.
Well, as far as quality, anyway.
You can still get tons. I think the Trails series is pretty up there too. It's not on the level of Persona, but I think if you could do worse than Trails of Cold Steel on the PlayStation 3 if you still have a PlayStation 3 sitting around.
That works.
Yeah, it works.
All right, let's move on. Going to talk about The Witcher 3. Finally, this week, we got a look at the Blood and Wine DLC. Matt, you have spent countless hours with The Witcher 3.
Oh, I can count them.
Did the game eval for Sifted. In fact, maybe tapping you to do the eval for this as well.
I don't know. My time is limited these days.
You're going to play it, right?
Yeah, but I don't know how I'm going to finish it in time.
Yeah.
I mean, that might be a several-month process.
What if I could tell you I could get it to you tomorrow?
I don't believe you. Ooh.
Anyway, I'm assuming you've checked out the initial trailer and the developer doc. How are you feeling about this? The last piece of DLC with Geralt, at least. Although now it's really starting to look like it might be the last piece of DLC, period.
Yeah, I think this is it. I think this is The Witcher 3 completed. Sadly enough, because I'm going to miss Geralt.
Well, it is, 9 months later?
Yeah. It came out in May.
A year later.
It was a year ago.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
They took their time doing DLC for this game.
Yeah, well, they say 90 quests, and that's not even counting the treasure hunt stuff and
they're
the
saying
side
30 hours.
Yeah.
This DLC, you can milk it for 30 hours.
Yeah.
That's insane. That's DLC, brother.
Pretty good for $15.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's what you should expect from DLC.
Well, I mean, CD Projekt Red does DLC like nobody else. I mean, 16 pieces of free DLC out of the gate. Was it 15 each? It's $25 for the season pass for both. Hearts of Stone itself was 20 hours.
It was,
if you did everything.
Yeah.
And the story was arguably better than the main game.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
It's these guys are crazy. They're crazy.
They are crazy. Well, they're reaping the rewards from being crazy.
Well, I mean, they're like the Naughty Dogs of narrative content at this
Eastern
point.
Europe.
Yeah. Pride of Poland.
Yeah, they should be. Well deserved.
They're national heroes over there, as I understand.
For real?
Yeah. Well, I mean, The Witcher was a big book series there to begin with, and they took that and turned it into this internationally acclaimed thing. They're mentioned in little lists of Polish people to watch, or kind of our Man of the Year stuff or whatever, that kind of thing. But they're all, those guys are always mentioned as and the best, the game developer that brings pride to Poland or whatever kind of. And yeah, they do. They should, because those guys are some of the best around. And plus, on top of that, they do GOG.
So, what are you most excited about for this expansion, Matt?
I'm most excited about the fact that it takes place somewhere else.
Yeah,
that it's
brand new territory.
It's in this kind of vineyard-heavy sort of fantasy Italy place, and it's so bright and colorful, and it
really looks like a different game.
Yeah, it doesn't look like the previous game at all. And I also enjoy a lot of the stuff I've seen so far where Geralt looks like he's kind of having a good time.
Yeah.
It's I like it when
Geralt lost the scowl.
Geralt gets drunk and sloppy. That's when the fun stuff happens. So I'm looking forward to just spending more time with that character, frankly.
A lot of time, 30 hours.
Yeah, and seeing some of the new armor and some of the new weapons, it's like it's my favorite game, not just last year, but probably the last like 4 years. So I'll play more of it as much as you want to get. I got to do something until No Man's Sky comes out.
Do you think that people are going to still be engaged this far along?
I think so. I mean, maybe not people that didn't like it.
Well, sure. But I'm saying, like, do you think the same amount of people that bought the last significant chunk of DLC will buy this?
Yeah, I think for the most part, people who bought a season pass.
Oh, you're right.
So I think they're going to probably come back and play what they paid for.
Yeah.
It's
going to be a tough time of year, though.
The only disappointment for me right now is I was hoping this one would have a physical release with the other 2 Gwent decks.
Right.
And it doesn't seem like they're doing that.
Coming out May 29th, is that right?
That was 30th.
30th? End of the month.
It's in there. It's those last few days.
Pre-E3.
Yeah.
So to speak.
And previously, I think we saw like a quick leak that hinted June 7th, but I'm glad it's a week earlier. Earlier is good. I would hope it would be done by now. Anyway.
What is the plot behind this DLC? Do you know?
I don't know. I've been kind of keeping isolated on that a little bit because I just don't want to know more than I have to, I guess.
Because you know you're going to play it anyway.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't seem like a stretch to say there's vampires involved. Like, is the main key art is like him in the throne with like kind of the blood creature hanging up. I'm Blood and Wine to me says like you're gonna go, and there's hints. There's also hints in the main game, the original main game, talking in the glossary and the bestiary and stuff about how dangerous and high vampires are, because like most of the vampires in The Witcher are like giant bat monsters,
right?
But like the high vampires are the one, and you do run into one in the main game, but like there's like just this thing where it's like don't mess with a high vampire unless you are like the best Witcher ever.
Uber Witcher.
And so like I would imagine that like Blood and Wine is going to maybe deal in the overarching way. I imagine you're going to run into some high vampire or high vampires that are like Dracula level kind of stuff, which I'm super on board with.
Yeah. The game looks awesome, and I like that they've completely kind of changed the art style. It looks like they've completely really reworked the engine for this?
Mm-hmm. Well, they reworked the engine, and they reworked like how they render like the grass and the flowers and the foliage. And like one of the developers in an interview I read was saying like we're thinking about patching the main game and replacing all the vegetation with how we render it in this game because we think it looks so much better. And I'm like,
probably run smoother too.
Yeah, and I'm like, you guys, like it's just like you guys. It's like that's the thing about CD Projekt is this they care so much about what their game is and how people. The experience people have with it, it takes some time to do stuff, but they're very responsive and very conscientious.
Do you know how much this is going to cost separately? This DLC?
I don't know because I have I already have it.
$15.
I think it's 15.
Yeah,
I think it's 15 or like 25 for the whole, or maybe it's 19 each, and like.
That's a lot.
20,
well, let's go for 30 hours of gameplay.
I bought the season pass like with the game,
like
so
a year ago.
Yeah, I didn't. It was not a question for me, so I don't really know. But they're not crazy. It's not like you're not paying a $60 season pass like Battlefront or something.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. If we did a best DLC of 2016, I'm guessing this would probably end up being on the hot list.
There's a reason I picked this as my first fantasy draft because I think this thing's going to rip Metacritic apart.
Yep, you're ripping my team apart right now.
Well, hang on. I lost 2 games too. I think Horizon Zero Dawn isn't going to make it. I don't think Pokemon Go is going to make it either. That was a dumb pick.
I lost like half my team. I'm not even exaggerating. I've lost like half my team.
Persona 5 still might make it.
It's not making it.
It
you
might.
know that. You're just patronizing me, trying to make me feel better.
I'm patrioticizing.
No, that's even worse. All right, let's move on to the last topic of the Big Six. The other big, huge, monstrous reveal from the past week, Battlefield 1. The rumors ended up being 100% true, set in World War I. I think this looks awesome.
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Only because I never would have imagined that this is what World War I would be.
Yeah, well, because there's never any kind of take on World War I. I mean, World War I is never seen as a super dramatic conflict.
Horses. Like, I never dreamed that green gas looks so awesome, by the way.
And the biplane, I call the biplane fights as being a highlight. But the Zeppelin looks pretty awesome,
too.
And, like, they're doing a great job of making everyone in this, like, they're taking all these elements of, like, the uniforms and the technology of the time, and they're doing a really good job making everyone in this trailer look like a complete badass.
Oh, I know.
Like the ponchos being used like capes, and the kind of using like the spiked grenade to just like hammer people down, and like I mean, there's some great imagery in this.
That's what I'm saying. Their interpretation of World War I blows my mind. Like I literally never dreamed this game would have this style. Mm-hmm. Because it's very dramatized, almost like a superhero movie. Like,
and DICE doesn't really do that.
No,
Like they're very straightforward.
Sticks right to the line, man. Like it toes the line of realism in like the Red Baron, like which that's actually a real pilot. It's not like they made it up, but just the way that they stylize the trailer. And look, it could just be the trailer. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, you don't know, but
they did a bang up job on that trailer, man.
And it's a risk.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's going to pay off.
It's totally paid off.
I don't know if you've noticed, but at least earlier, I don't know if it may have changed because the internet shifts gears rapidly. But there
every
was
2 hours.
There was a point at which earlier this week that the Battlefield 1 trailer was the most liked trailer, period. Not game trailer, trailer of anything ever on YouTube.
Yep.
And the Call of Duty Infinite Warfare trailer was the most disliked trailer of all time.
It's still that way. Yeah.
And like, it's interesting in that like people are clearly using the likes and dislikes system to send a message. They're weaponizing the likes and dislikes in this situation.
Activision just blew it off. They're like, oh, we're glad our fans are passionate.
Yeah.
Like, okay.
I know what passionate I know what passionate means in entertainment. It's like 7 out of 10 on the hard to work with scale.
It's like, dude, don't try to act like you don't care that you got 400,000 thumbs down.
And it's funny that we're kind of like looking sideways at that Battlefield developer who's like, oh, isn't that cute and quaint that the Call of Duty has all his free cam shots and they're 2010 graphics, and wait till Friday when we make the internet melt, and we're like, oh, okay, bro, another Battlefield. It's and we're like, no, he pretty much they came through on that one. This trailer, I never thought World War I would be way more exciting than a trailer involving mechs and space fighters, but I'm in.
Here's the funny part. At the end of the day, all those fanboys who gave that trailer a thumbs down will buy it
they're still gonna
day
buy.
one.
They probably got a pre-order. They're just pissed.
And most of them will probably not buy Battlefield 1. Yeah. They'll buy COD just like they always do. They just had to be their little whiny, bitchy selves and try to make a point, which I still don't know what the point was. It's not like...
Well, a lot of it's just because I guess people just wanted to buy that Modern Warfare 2 remaster separately.
Is that really what it comes down to?
That's what most of the people who are complaining about it are talking about, yeah. That's the most prevalent complaint I've seen.
That's retarded. I hate to use
I mean, there are a lot of people saying...
Sometimes it just comes out of me. When I see something that seems really stupid. My apologies for saying that, by the way.
It's an ugly word, but the other problem with that word is, we need to come up with another word that says, satisfying to say, I don't know. It's a strange situation.
It's juvenile. There's a good word to use in this case. Juvenile. Yeah. But that's the internet.
Yeah, it's the internet. But it's and so I have seen people that are kind of complaining that there are people that are legitimately saying I don't want a Call of Duty in this weird sort of sci-fi situation.
It's been there for the last 2 years.
It has been, but I can understand why someone would be sick of it. But you hope that at least one of them. You've got basically 3 series running under one banner at this point between the 3 different developers. You'd hope at least one of them would hold to kind of the classic, we're just going to do standard warfare in a modern or very recently modern or slightly forward modern situation.
Well, that was kind of Black Ops 3, though.
Yeah, I mean, Black Ops 3 still had, some robot-y stuff and some that kind of thing, but
But it was more boots on the boots on the ground has become the catchphrase of the week.
For the realistic minute. But I mean, Black Ops 3 also sold real well.
Yeah.
So I mean, people are speaking with the wallet on that, and we'll see how Infinite Warfare does.
Advanced Warfare sold well too.
It did, but then there's the contingent of informed fans who are aware that the thing that they're being sold here is the next game by the people who made Ghosts.
Yeah.
And now they have to.
It does go to outer space.
It does, but there's some.
It's going the wrong direction, I think.
I mean, look, I'll admit, I pre-ordered it.
Which one?
Infinite Warfare.
Oh, okay.
And I will also pre-order Battlefield 1, but because I want the Modern Warfare remaster, and if you have space fighters, I'm gonna play it. That's basically how it's gonna go. And I'm not saying I'm going to be a cheerleader for that game, but I understand why someone would be like, hey, like, you're kind of hoodwinking me into buying Ghosts 2 just to play this remaster of a game I really also want to play. And I understand that anger.
I can't understand why people want to play the remaster so badly.
Because people love that game.
But it's like backwards compatible on Xbox One, or it will be.
But this one looks good. I don't know. I think the old one still looks pretty good.
That's why I don't believe that that's really what people are pissed off about. Like, I think that people really are pissed off that the direction that they perceive the game to be going.
There are some, but I've seen a lot more people complaining that they just want the remaster, and they're being forced to buy this $80 package for it.
All right, well, let's go back to Battlefield 1, because we did talk about Call of Duty last week. Here's my big concern about Battlefield 1. They said a big part of the game is up close and personal combat. I don't know about you.
Sync issues.
I just honestly have not played many video games with first-person, hand-to-hand combat that felt good. It's usually just like, it's fine for just like an insta-kill melee or a knife stab. Like, it works great then. But when you get to a place where you're like swinging a shovel and the other person's swinging a shot, it just gets like really messy really quickly. And then when you start talking about doing it in multiplayer, it gets really messy really quickly. And so that to me is like the big concern, is that like if they're in, look, trench warfare, that's the way it was. Some dude comes down in the trench, you pick up the shovel and you try to chop his head off with it. Like, I like the immediacy of it, but I just worry that the mechanics of it are never going to work. Because I honestly cannot remember a single first-person action game where I enjoyed the melee combat.
I can think of one. Dark Messiah of Might and Magic.
Okay.
That's it.
I haven't played that.
No one remembers that one. But it was a Might and Magic first-person action game, and like you had a sword, and it was a very satisfying melee combat. Although really, it ended up in the end, you pretty much ended up just kicking people off cliffs. Like your kick didn't.
You do a lot of that in Uncharted 4.
Yeah. Well, this one, like, you had a specific kick button, and the kick didn't use stamina. So, like, you could just boot someone, like, down a path and off a cliff if you wanted to. And there were, if you wanted to be boring and cheesy, you could just kick everybody to death.
Right.
But the more satisfying thing was to use your sword, and, like, you could, like, it was like parries and clashes and stab a guy through the face, and that kind of, it was very satisfying for the time. I haven't played it in like 8 years, so maybe it sucks now. I don't know.
Yeah, you might go back.
When someone says there's never been satisfying first-person melee combat, I'm like, well, there was this one game once years ago that might suck now, but at the time it was amazing.
Yeah, and the other part too is that like the weapons. I mean, I don't know that I want to go back to using bolt action rifles.
See, like Nolan Elric says, the Dark Messiah, the people who made that went on to make Dishonored. And now that I think about that, I can see that.
That kind of makes sense.
See that. Yeah. It's there, the same kind of visceral sort of sword to the neck kind of game.
But even in that game, I didn't think it was amazing. I thought it was okay.
No, you gotta start somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Like I said, it's okay if it's just little parts of the game, but if it becomes like a huge element of it, like,
well, I'm hoping
that's what they've been pumping it up as.
I'm just hoping there's a little more ebb and flow to this one, because one of the things I miss about the old Battlefields is how you used to have, like, we talked about this before, but it was like, there were some of the multiplayer maps were just like, you start here, invade. Like, it was a little more. It wasn't just two teams like rotating around a map capturing points. It was like there was a battle line. There was a side and a clash kind of thing. And I'm kind of hoping something like that is in this game. And one of the things they're talking about with up close and personal is that, like, they're kind of, you have to kind of do an equivalent of the whole going over the top thing. And those glory charges inevitably ended up in, like, horrible, dirty, vicious trench warfare, hand to hand, with knives and bayonets and shovels and boots and mustard gas.
Whatever else you can get.
So like, if they're talking about, like, there's going to be, like, bursts of that where, like, suddenly everybody's on top of each other and it's like, you just have to brutally, like, fight it out with melee. Like, I think that's a cool thing. I'm hoping they're meaning something like that, as opposed to, like, you're going to be, like, running around, like, knifing people constantly, because, like, that's not fun.
Yeah.
And I don't, not to disparage DICE, but their mechanics can kind of run the spectrum.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's fair. That might be more than fair.
So I'm just, I'm hoping we get Bad Company 2 dice more than, Battlefield 1943 dice, maybe,
Yeah.
or Battlefield.
Well, I'll say one thing. You're seeing it right now. Like, before they unveiled the Battlefield 1 on a live stream, they did, 2 hours of conversation with DICE and other developers about the OG Battlefield games. My favorite Battlefield game is probably Battlefield 2. At least that's the one that I've played the most.
I remember that. It was a bit of a disease.
Yeah, I was really hopelessly addicted to that game for probably a lot longer than I should have been, sadly. But I think that was before I really got hooked on Call of Duty.
Yeah, it was like
I'm one of the rare people who went from playing Battlefield first to being hooked on Call of Duty. Usually it goes in reverse. But
I think my favorite is still 1942.
Yeah.
I still remember seeing that at Camp EA that year, and it was they had it set up at 4 computers in the cafeteria or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't even a thing you were supposed to stop and look at, really.
Yeah.
They just set it up there to show people because DICE had it there. And I remember everybody came in for lunch, and everyone walked away from lunch, and there were just lines, 10 people deep to play Battlefield 42.
Couple kiosks.
And all the EA PR people were like, "Why is everyone so into this game?"
I knew we shouldn't have had this out here.
and I remember
You
Adam.
need to be looking at Madden.
Adam Sessler, I think, said to one of his, it's this is the most exciting thing I've seen in 2 years. In the game. The fact that you can get in a Jeep and drive over here, and this guy's strafing you with a plane, and there's oh my God, there's a guy in a tank, and I jump out and I throw a sticky bomb on the tank, and now we can get it. Nothing like that had ever been. I mean, we thought about stuff like that, but you'd never seen it pulled off before. And now you play it, and it's super janky and weird.
Yeah.
But that Wake Island demo, I played that more than just about any other multiplayer shooter I've ever played.
You want to know what really excites me about Battlefield 1? All of us getting on horses with swords and going to war. Think about that. When have you done that in a multiplayer game?
Mountain Blade.
Yeah, exactly. When have you done that?
Mountain Blade's really good.
It is, but I'm guessing less than 2% of the people watching this have ever played the game, sadly.
Maybe.
Don't
let me down, chat. You know Mountain Blade. I know you know Mountain Blade. A lot of you are European. I know you know Mountain Blade.
But that's what I'm saying. If for a lot of people, it is going to be this brand new.
Yeah.
And look, for me even, I didn't play Mountain Blade all that much. Far less a crazy polished version of it, which is what we're going to get with Battlefield 1.
Mountain Blade doesn't have the highest level of polish.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty janky game. That's what I'm saying. Playing a big budget, what some people call AAA game. I hate to use that word because you're denoting its quality before you ever evaluate it. So I always call it big budget. But a big budget game with horses and swords, going against people with guns, I don't know how that works out, but it just seems insane.
If it's what you got, it's what you got.
I mean, it really does seem insane.
World War I was like that.
It was, but
that's the thing about World War I, and I wonder how much of that they're going to get into is the fact that part of World War. See, look at them back me up on the Mountain Blade thing. Look at that happen. I wonder if they're going to get into the fact that one of the things about World War I, it was the first mechanized modern war where the people were still using cavalry tactics against tanks.
Yeah,
and
it's insane.
Finally we
walking up to tanks and putting grenades in their treads.
Finally had the technology to kill people on a really mechanical level, a mass production scale, and we were still using the kind of expendable peasant idea of warfare, and it was just not functional. And that's what's interesting.
I just wonder if that's really going to throw cogs in the machine, man.
I don't know. I don't know where to go with this.
If pull it off, I'll be really surprised.
Like I said, it's a risk. It's if they pull it off, they'll be lauded. I think.
I feel like a lot of the parts of the game are going to have to be cordoned off into their own things.
Different
I feel
modes and stuff.
I feel like there's no way they're going to let you me and you and 4 friends get on horses with swords and fight a team that has tanks and artillery.
I don't know.
I don't know how you can make that work.
If the horse is fast,
real fast,
and the tanks aren't. The tanks were not tremendously. They didn't have the giant cannons on them. They were basically machine guns mounted on treads.
Right.
You're dealing with really primitive technology in some ways that just happen to be still very good at chewing people up.
That's what I'm saying.
I'm most interested in how they're going to incorporate chemical warfare into it, because that's the most terrifying thing about World War I.
That could also be something that gets a lot of brushback from mainstream media. We already saw an editorial some editor wrote this week, and we curated it to sift it if you want to find it, but it's basically an editorial saying how World War One a game based on World War One would glorify war, and because
I doubt it. I don't think that's the angle the Swedish developer company, the neutral country, is going to take on war. It's like, no, we didn't fight in any of these, but war's sure awesome. Like, no, Sweden doesn't roll that way.
I mean, here's the thing. First of all, war is hell.
Yeah.
Like,
they all sucked.
They suck.
Yeah.
People die in horrible, gruesome ways alone with no one there to console them. Like, that's war. Like, I don't
understand the kind
I hope it is realistic.
I think it will be.
I hope it does open the eyes to a lot of people who maybe have a grandfather or a great-grandfather who fought in this war, and you'll appreciate what these people did. Like, our warfare now is like drone. It's like video games.
Yeah.
It's like we have dudes sitting in a control center with a joystick as a drone flies over. Like, things are different now, and a lot of the younger people
probably not of like a lot of super dramatic like motion pictures and games going to be made 100 years from now about like our wars now.
Yeah, like us fighting like ISIS or whatever,
right.
Like our drones just dropping bombs. Like, but a lot of younger people today don't realize like what it was like for. I mean, this is the thing that like established like our democracy and gave us freedom. Like, I feel like people need to see it. Like, and it's not just America. It's all of Europe. Like, everybody did this.
And a lot of people don't know World War One. They don't, it's just sort of like World War One's like that war that came before World War II.
The little brother of World War II.
It's like, but there's a lot of historians that think like 200-300 years from now, people are just historians might end up considering World War One and World War II one war,
right?
Because
as time goes on, they just start to.
It was really the period between World War One and World War II was really just sort of a lull, like everything that led to World War II comes directly out of how horribly the Allies wrapped things up in the Treaty of Versailles, and there's a lot of fertile ground there to kind of, and especially in the sense of like, there's a lot of stuff that they're going to see in this game that I think eventually you're going to be like, oh no, that was a real thing. I mean, it's obviously over-dramatized.
Gas, that's a real thing.
I don't think a lot of people's grandfathers were jumping around in a cape poncho and hammering Germans down with spiked grenades, but like...
I'm just speaking more of like the brutality of it, the primitive nature of it.
It was a vicious war, and it was not a glorified war, and it was not a as they say about World War II, it was not a good war. Because no one really knew what they were... It was sort of the last vestige of that, all those wars fought in Europe over random territory between like nobility and royal personages that were fought out by basically the peasants. It was like... It was for a long time, it's that Game of Thrones thing. It's that sort of like a bunch of, bunch of people, elites in charge, sort of like playing chess with each other across Europe's various sketchy kingdom lines, basically. And this was very much one of those sort of like, we all sort of hate each other and we don't really get along and we're going to have another one of these wars. Oh my God, look how many people we killed. It was like, wow, we can't just like, this, that Teddy Roosevelt quote, like, this can't be diplomacy anymore. That was World War I was the war that taught us that, basically.
Yeah.
The war to end all wars, they called it.
Yeah. I hope DICE goes all in and does it.
I think
I hope they don't pull punches. Like, look, this could be like, sadly, like the best history lesson a lot of people who play this game get on World War I. Like, there's something about a video game that can make an impact versus reading a book or even seeing like old grainy black and white footage on the History Channel. Like, seeing it in vivid HD right there, like it could make a huge impact and change a lot of people's perspectives on our country or whatever country they live in, their ancestors. Like,
I hope they do lean on a kind of a historical angle to some degree. At least like have a glossary
I'm sure
or something, or
play
like,
a little fast and loose with it. But
yeah, but I mean, in the same way that like Call of Duty 2 was a pretty good starting point.
Right.
If you were interested in like all these little battles in the scenes in like the various levels of Call of Duty 2, or even the maps you played on in Battlefield 1942, like that's a pretty good starting point. It's like I even did that when I wasn't incredibly well versed when 1942 came out. I was not incredibly well versed in the Eastern Front, and I'm like, what's the Battle of Kursk? Like, I don't know that as anything except
it can be like a fire starter,
map.
like
and I looked it up and
like the flame.
You learn a lot from reading that. And then like the funny thing
then
is,
you watch the History Channel.
Then you watch it. Well, at the time the History Channel was basically all just the Hitler Channel.
Right, it was.
The younger viewers may not recall a time when the History Channel used to be all about Hitler. Now it's all about aliens.
Well, yeah, they may not recall the time when the History Channel was about history.
Yeah. Now it's about aliens and Jesus for the most part.
Anything that people will watch. Yeah.
But it's... And the other fun thing about learning that stuff is like then okay, here's this battle I didn't know anything about. I learned about that battle. Now I understand why that map's made the way it is.
Right,
It's
right,
like,
yeah.
they always
reverse osmosis.
Yeah, DICE always has a reason for starting like the Russians here and the Germans here. It's like, oh, this is in microcosm how that battle was fought out. And like that's the kind of stuff I miss from the old Battlefield games, is like things that weren't necessarily beholden to kind of the conventional wisdom of how shooter maps should be designed. And stuff is like, we're going to take this historical idea and we're going to try to emulate it in this multiplayer battle.
So we've only seen like the first trailer, and we already had a great discussion on this game. I'm sure around E3 when we start seeing more from it, we're going to talk about it again. I like that we're having this discussion on this game. I think it definitely shows that there's something to the setting for Battlefield 1 versus Infinite Warfare or a lot of other shooters. Who would have thought that
we're excited about Battlefield?
Yeah, that's great. That's really good to see. Because we talked about Hardline. It would launch right around the time when Sifted and GameFace launched. And it was hard for Marcus and I to gather up much motivation to talk about it. Because it was just like, whatever. It's like thugs with Uzis driving around in, like, shooter cars.
It was just payday, basically.
It was, So, really excited for that game. Hopefully you guys feel the same way. I don't think the hate on Call of Duty is really all that justified, but... I
think that'll cool off eventually.
Yeah, I think that's just that whole us against them thing, polarization. Like, everyone feels like they have to pick sides. They can't just be like, I like this, and I like this too. It's okay to like more than one thing.
It is.
It really is.
That doesn't stop DICE from probably giggling all week.
Oh, of course not. They're eating it up, man. They're loving it. All right, it's time to move on to our trailer of the week. And for the first time ever, it's not for a video game. I'll give you one guess what it is for.
Well, I don't have to guess. It's right here.
Yeah, I was talking to the audience.
Well, you're looking at me.
It was a dramatic pause. Well, I have to look away. I can't just stare into the camera. It'll scare the audience. They'll be like, Shane's insane. So our trailer of the week this week, now I don't know which camera to look at. Our trailer of the week this week is for a movie based on a video game. It just came out late last night, a really odd time to release a first trailer for a movie. This is the trailer for Assassin's Creed, the movie. And I have to say, it looks like, of course that doesn't mean much, it could be maybe the first decent movie based on a video game.
Well, that already happened.
What was that?
That was Mortal Kombat.
Oh, come on now. Come on now. As usual, get your questions into the chat while we're watching the trailer. I think this looks pretty good.
It looks like Assassin's Creed.
I've seen other trailers for video game movies that looked like they might be kind of good, and they sucked. So don't hold me to that.
I will say that early impressions from screenings of Warcraft is that it's decent.
Wow, that's encouraging.
It's still going to bomb, but it sounds like it might actually be okay.
Wow, worth it for us to actually go and see it, is what you're saying. And we'll be like the 8 people in the theater.
Maybe. I mean, if you don't want to see Now You See Me Too.
Yeah.
Some competition that weekend.
All right, so here it is, the debut trailer for Assassin's Creed, the movie.
Where am I?
At 6 p.m. yesterday evening, you were executed and pronounced dead. You no longer exist.
What kind of prison is this?
It's not a prison. You're about to enter the Animus. What you're about to see, hear, and feel are the memories of your ancestor, who's been dead for 500 years.
What do you want from me?
Your past. Welcome to the Spanish Inquisition.
I am God, even though I'm a man of God. My whole life in the hand of God. So y'all better quit playing with God.
We work in the dark to serve the light. We are assassins.
I am God.
So, slight tweak to the Animus there.
A little bit. Animus is a little more, I don't know, it looks like something out of like City of Lost Children. It's
Yeah.
like really kind of creepy and Matrixy.
I feel like they have the tone right, though. At least in the
Yeah.
trailer, they do.
Tone's good. I don't care for the Kanye West song. I don't know.
I don't care
that's
for
doing
Kanye
there.
West, period.
I just think I actually kind of like that actual song, but I'm just like, in context of that trailer, it's just like, what? Okay, if that's what you think will sell it to the kids. But it looks pretty good. It's just too bad. It comes out the week after Star Wars. It's gonna get buried.
Oh, yeah.
But it does look.
I don't really care if it's successful or
No,
not.
I mean, it looks like Assassin's Creed. I'll watch Fassbender in just about anything.
Yeah. Someone says, Han Loblo, I was one of 6 people in Ong Bak. Well, that's just stupidity, because Ong Bak is all that in 10 bags of chips.
Yeah.
That's just everyone else's loss on that.
Yeah,
one.
let's not pretend that huge box office is a mark of quality.
Yeah, I would never say
Transformers movies make $1 billion. Unless, come
there
on.
you go. Nolan Elric, either you guys playing Doom yet? I need to go ahead to pull the trigger and buy it. I'm assuming while I was sitting here, I got a download code for Doom. At least I would, within the next 23 minutes, I should get one. Otherwise, Bethesda is giving out review code after it's available at retail. So I'm assuming I probably have, in my email a code right now, but I have not played it. So we can't help you, man, unfortunately. It's like we said earlier, it sucks.
We got nothing.
Yeah, nobody does. That's just the way they're doing it. So
Just hold on and see, I guess,
Here's one from Surf Spider. If Naughty Dog can deliver superb game after game and do their franchises justice, why the hell can't Valve do a Half-Life 3?
Valve is too busy counting money, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't...
That's the thing. Naughty Dog has to make games to survive as a company. That's all it has. It makes video games. It's a video game developer. Valve has so many other revenue streams. It literally, the only motivation Valve has to ever make another video game is to please fans. But it doesn't even need to do that because people use its service whether they're fans of Valve or not, because it is the leading marketplace for PC games online. So it has no incentive.
Yeah, there's no reason.
If Valve ever does show Half-Life 3, the reason it's showing Half-Life 3 is purely because of people like you. There's no other reason for them to do it. They've already demonstrated that they don't care enough personally to do it.
Yeah,
it would have been done.
You'd have to start losing people from Steam for some reason.
There would have to be some kind of crazy revolt, like all the thumbs down for the new Call of Duty trailer. Literally, you'd have to organize some kind of a protest where, 80% of the PC gamers going to Steam, got together overnight and just quit buying stuff from Steam, overnight. And then made a declarative statement of, we're not buying from Steam again until you show us the first gameplay of Half-Life 3. That is probably the only thing that will ever guarantee that Half-Life 3 is shown.
And that's about as likely as...
Very unlikely.
I can't think of anything to compare that to.
That's about as likely as very unlikely.
Yep. As likely as an M-rated Zelda game.
Yeah, exactly. I really don't think we're ever going to see Half-Life 3.
And if we do, it's not going to be good enough.
And if we do,
it'll never be good enough.
It won't be. It'll never live up to the expectations. And I also would say that it probably would not be developed by Valve. It would probably be done at a house by some developer that they decided that they trusted. Naughty Dog, not a bad choice. And if I remember correctly, didn't Naughty Dog tweet at Valve saying, hey, bro, if you want to give up that Half-Life license, we'll tackle it for you?
Yeah, there was something like that. Or at least some Naughty Dog person said, hey.
That's the chance? How awesome would it be if Naughty Dog's new game after Last of Us 2 is Half-Life 3? I would be a hell of a lot happier playing that than I was playing Uncharted 4. I'll tell you that much. Guarantee.
Half-Life 3?
Yeah, hell yeah. Half-Life 3 created by Naughty Dog. I'd much rather play that than play Uncharted 4. You wouldn't.
I don't know. I mean...
Lots of hypotheticals in there.
I don't really care about Half-Life anymore.
Really? I still do.
Is Gordon still going to be quiet the whole time? Because that's dumb.
Link is still quiet.
Yeah, well. That's a problem, too.
Let's see. W. Matthew, why would you ever make a game? It's too much of a risk. Pretty much, man.
Mm-hmm.
Even indie games now, the market's so saturated, like, for fun. That's the only reason you would make a game now.
Yeah, or if like there's someone in Valve that like just decide like that was his personal mission to get Half-Life 3 made. Because there's a lot of, apparently in Valve there's a lot of like, you can just choose what to work on.
Yeah, it is.
And most people tend to choose to work on like Steam stuff, I guess. Because it's the more, it's the more public facing thing, and like, at least you know that probably whatever you're doing on Steam is going to like see the light of day one day.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, you get the impression, I wonder how many like pitches and rough drafts of like Half-Life 3 have gone like into the bin over there. You know, like people must pitch an idea for Half-Life 3 like twice a week, but nothing's ever going to be good enough at this point.
Here's one from Dar Touras. Shane, are there any plans to be more transparent with Sifted's finances and specific goals? I feel like if there is a financial target goal for specific future content and we could see how close or far we are from achieving it, it would incentivize more support. For example, seeing the Easy Allies goals and benchmarks made the path clear and gave us a stake. Your thoughts? So basically you're just saying like set up a Patreon with clear goals, or even like a Kickstarter, really. Probably not. We would have to build that all by hand. Yeah, I don't see that ever happening. I can see where you're coming from. I guess the way I look at it is like needing a clear pathway means, I guess in some ways I would look at it like you don't trust that we would do the right things with the money. The other part of it, too, is that, you know, sometimes when you have ideas, you don't want to share them with other people. I think it's a little easy for Easy Allies because they were just like, we're going to do a podcast. We're going to do reviews. But, our mantra at Sifted has been we do things differently or we don't do them at all. And we have kind of held to that this whole time. And I think that's why people like GameFace. I think that's why people like shows like Platinum Journey. I think that's why people who are subscribers to Sifted like Sifted as a website, because it's different. And I feel like if we were to put it out there, okay, well, here's this new show that we want to do, and here's what the show is going to be and how it's going to work. There's big boys out there like IGN and GameSpot who would snap up those ideas. I mean, they've done it before. If you look at all IGN's original content right now, where did it all come from? It came from game trailers. And, they're pretty shameless in taking content ideas and running with it. So, I don't know that model would work for us. If we were just a generic outlet, just creating the same stuff everybody else does, and look, I'm not banging on any site that does that. It works for some sites, and sites that are driven by ad revenue and have a big audience, it works for them. It would never work for us, unfortunately. Us doing the same thing that everybody else does, we wouldn't be coming up on the 1-year anniversary of Sifted right now. So I would say it's pretty doubtful. I would just say, trust me that I know what I'm doing. I've been creating content that you guys love for 20 years. All those shows from GT, where did they come from? You're looking at them. So, I don't know. I guess I would just ask for more trust, I guess is the best way to put it. And trust that whatever money you give us, we're going to be really smart with it. And we're going to give you something different, but something that's still high quality. So...
Short Raver asks, what do you think about the recent EA Star Wars announcements beyond Battlefront 2, like Visceral's game coming in 2018 now? I don't know about now, because I think it was always going to come in 2018. That game was always way, way out.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't really seen anything from that game.
Nothing. I mean, 2018 almost seems a little optimistic to me, because we still haven't seen anything. The fact that Battlefront 2 is coming that fast is more surprising than anything else. The fact that they want to put out a Star Wars game every year for 4 years or so is not surprising to me whatsoever, because it's when you have that license, fucking get it out, do it.
Yeah.
I just hope they're good, and I would hope that they don't waste it, because Disney clearly doesn't have any patience with the game space, so I would imagine EA knows they have to deliver.
Yep. Here's one. Oh, as soon as I had it. Oh, here we go. Vox91, how many of the games from Ubisoft's current fiscal calendar do you think will actually come out by 2017 of next year? I think he means Q1 of 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So they're saying Watch Dogs, For Honor, Ghost Recon Wildlands, a brand new IP
Mm-hmm.
that's unannounced. It's going to be shown at E3, and I think that's it.
All by the end of fiscal?
Yeah.
Maybe?
No, I think he's saying which.
Oh, which one?
Yeah. Or how many. Yeah.
I thought they said all of those were within fiscal.
Right, but he's saying realistically, how many of
Oh.
those do you think are going to make it out by March 31st of 2017?
I think we'll get Watch Dogs 2, For Honor, and the new IP. I think Ghost Recon will slip. They continually have trouble with those games.
I would say 2.
Yeah?
I would say Watch Dogs 2 because we know that's coming this year because they don't have Creed and they need something for that
Right.
quarter. I agree with Wildlands. I think Wildlands, really ambitious game by a team who's never really made a game like that before, and the new IP. I think those are the two that don't make it out. So I would say half, and you think 3 out of 4.
I think For Honor and I think For Honor will end up in the Far Cry spot, like in Q1.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe the new IP makes it out in the Division spot next year.
Yeah. See, I'm thinking, yeah. I don't see the Division making it out, or Division, the new IP making it out. Like, to not announce it at all, unless it's like a really simple like game, because that could happen. Like, it could be just like another Rabbids game or something like that. And if that's the case, it'll make it. If it's a big budget, not AAA, because I refuse to say that. If it's a big budget game, I would be really surprised if it's announced at E3 and then comes out like 8 or 9 months later. So we'll see, but that's my guess.
What about South Park?
Why did you stop supporting Easy Allies? I didn't stop supporting Easy Allies.
I think they're talking about somebody else that said they did.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we haven't heard anything about the South Park game that Ubisoft's making.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. And we'll see it at E3, though.
Yeah.
Here's another one from Vox. Where the blank is the new Platinum Journey at? I got it today. It showed up in the inbox literally as I was walking out the door to come to the studio today. It is in my inbox. It has not gone through any rounds of revision yet. It could be perfect, and it could be up like tonight. It could maybe need a couple changes, and which means it probably would be up tomorrow, but it is in my inbox. The file is there. Poor Adam. Like, the guy who does that show, I could just tell that episode just whooped his butt.
And this is Arkham City?
Yeah.
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 That's a
I
hard
think
platinum.
I think we're not going to let people choose the games anymore. I mean, this was supposed to be 3 weeks. It's been like almost 3 months, I think, since the last episode. So I think we're going to be a little smarter with what games he picks. Like, we don't want it to be a walk in the park because then some of the tension is lost out of the show. But it can't become like a 3-month like gauntlet for him to go through either.
Next up, Bloodborne.
Yeah, that's not happening. So I know prior episodes we kind of let you guys pick what the next one would be. I think instead of like giving options and letting you guys pick from them, we're just going to open a thread and just let you guys throw games out there and then I'll pick one of them. I also don't like the fact that everybody kind of knows what the next episode is. It kind of ruins some of the mystery from it. So yeah, we're going to change how we select the next episode going forward, if only for Adam's sanity. Because I think he's probably at the end of his rope, and I want him to keep making the show. So.
And I'd like to see more of them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, and I would like to see them more frequently as everybody would. So, but yes, funny that they mentioned that. It is in my inbox right now. So hopefully with a code for Doom. They're hanging out right now having cocktails. Let's see. Did you find any other ones?
Nothing jumps out at me, really.
Okay. Here's one from Rewind Play Labs. What are you excited to play at E3 this year? Also, I'll be at E3. If I see you, can I get a handshake? Hell yeah, you can get a hug if you're okay with that. Definitely. Pictures, whatever, man. If you're a Sifted subscriber, I'll do whatever. It's all good. In fact, I'll do whatever for anybody. Like, even if you're just watching the stream and you run into me at E3, come right up. Like, don't even think twice. Come up and say hi.
You won't do whatever. I mean,
it depends on how much you contribute to Sifted Elite.
E3 gets crazy late at night, but let's...
I'm kidding. All right, so I think that is it. Oh, what games are we want to play at E3? I know what your answer is.
What is
Well, actually, I don't.
I don't care about playing No Man's Sky at E3 because it's not my game.
Yeah.
Um,
That's what I was going to say.
I don't know. I mean, I guess I want to play Zelda.
Zelda, yeah. We may not have to play it, though, if they're going to do a 12-hour live stream.
Here's the thing. I don't really play a whole lot on the floor anymore. You know, I play it at the events before it. Like,
but don't you, like, go and pick and choose a couple games to play on the floor, like, as you walk around? Like, it's usually Nintendo games, because they're the ones you can't get your hands on until the show.
I mean, Nintendo games are kind of pretty... I mean, that's what... The main thing I probably played, or at least the game I waited around to play, was Star Fox last year, because that's the only time you're going to get your hands on it. But it's like... I don't know. I feel like the press conferences cover enough for me. And like sometimes I'd like to play some of the Sony exclusive stuff, but usually that's very hard to get into, and I run out of motivation by the time like Thursday rolls around. I don't know. I rarely have games that are like I target in that regard. It's more like I walk around the floor and see what's there, and if something strikes me, I'm like, oh, I want to see what that is, kind of thing. So that's probably. But I think in terms of like the game I'm going to try to beeline for when the floor opens, or the first time I get to the floor, it's probably going to be Zelda.
Yeah, it's me too, because with Nintendo, you won't play it before that, and you won't play it after that. Mm-hmm. Like, a lot of these other publishers have big events, or frequent events, or public events, or whatever, where you can go and play games, or they send you, like, the preview code.
Nintendo does go to a lot of, like, conventions, fan conventions. I mean, they were at WonderCon with pretty much everything.
Right, but it's, like, the same demo that they
had. Right,
it's
the same.
Like,
it's going to be the same thing. I mean, the Star Fox demo at WonderCon 2 months ago
was the same one
at E3 last year.
Which was the same one at E3. It's kind of all the same. And Nintendo doesn't really send out a lot of preview code for its games, whereas a lot of these games, like, will have betas, or they'll literally, like, send out preview code of the game. Nintendo, like, never does that anymore. And really, it's really never done that, to be honest. So, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, you kind of got to look at the whole show and be like, okay, what am I going to be able to play again within the... And that's how I always look at the last day of E3, is I look around and I'm like, which of these games do I have the least chance of being able to play before they come out? And those are the games that I play at E3, typically, like on the floor. So,
I mean, I don't know if it will even be there, but if you can play Ace Combat 7 in VR, I will jump on that.
I'll run at The Last Guardian, too, because, duh.
Yeah. Assuming it's playable.
Yeah. It shouldn't be out by E3. What the hell is going on?
We just passed, I think it was last week, we passed the 10th anniversary of Final Fantasy Versus 13's announcement.
I know.
It's like, wow.
It's crazy, man. It really is. All right, we got to wrap up the show, but before we go, it's time for the Sifted Elite Roll Call. This week's inductees into the Sifted Elite Crew, Salvatron. How do I say that second name? Pierre?
Yves.
Pierre Eves. Mitchell Ness. Polish lad. AJ the Legend. Yoo-hoo! Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it going the extra mile to help support the site. You guys and or girls, if there are any girls in that group, are the man and or woman. I appreciate it very much. And that's going to do it, Matt. Another excellent episode of GameFace. Next week, episode 50.
50.
Big landmark.
The big, what is the 50th anniversary? Is it
The
diamonds, gold?
I don't even know. Why am I looking at the young guy who's not married?
What was it when in your first life? In your first life, when you married your woman for 50 years, what was the anniversary? Tell me.
When you paid her parents for her hand in marriage.
What was the dowry?
Yep, having fun here. So yeah, next week, episode 50. I'll have to do something special. I haven't quite figured it out yet, but we'll whip up something. Try to have some fun for the big 5-0. Maybe we'll bring in a guest.
Yeah, maybe.
We'll see. I'll do my best to do something exciting. But anyway, don't forget, Platinum Journey should be up tonight, maybe tomorrow, but coming up very soon. Hit those polls of the week. I think that's it. Everybody have an excellent night. As always, thank you so much to everybody who's on the stream, but especially to our European friends, and that's going to become even more pronounced as the show shifts back an hour. So, love you guys. Really appreciate your support. It's always great to see a great chat, and it looks like we had another one tonight. So, everyone have an excellent night. GameFace is up and out.
Thank you.